quit that job today." That was the first thing Chen Hao ever said to me that wasn't an insult about my shoes. He said it in the middle of the school martial arts hall, loud enough that 40 people stopped punching air to listen, and he cracked his knuckles while he said it because subtlety was not really in the man's toolkit. The job he was talking about paid me 500 yuan an hour, 3 nights a week. That money was the difference between my little sister having meat in her lunch and my little sister having a very philosophical relationship with rice. "Why should I listen to you?" I said. "Because I'm stronger than you." He leaned down so his face was level with mine. Handsome guy, genuinely. The kind of face that makes you want to check your own reflection and then apologize to it. In this world, the strong are respected. A weakling like you should know how to bow his head. Fang Yu is not someone you can get close to. A toad shouldn't dream of eating swan meat. Understand something. I wasn't in love with Fang Yu. I was her sparring partner. She hit me for money. That was the entire relationship. Twice a week, I let a girl with a punching force of 760 kilograms use my face as a stress toy, and in exchange, I could afford my mother's medicine. And this guy thought I was a toad with romantic ambitions. My fists were closed so tight, my knuckles had gone white, and I could feel my pulse in my teeth. And I did absolutely nothing, because his punching power was 770 kilograms and mine was 397, and 397 kilograms of righteous fury still loses to 770 kilograms of rich kid. My best friend Fang Fan got between us with a smile so nervous it was basically a distress flare. "Young Master Chen, it's a misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. Wu Tian is just trying to earn a little money. His family has financial difficulties." "What's going on over there?" Instructor Gao Ming's voice came across the hall like a door slamming. Chen Hao straightened up. He glanced at the instructor. Then he gave me a look that said, "This isn't finished," and walked away, and everyone in the hall pretended to be extremely interested in their footwork. Fang Fan let out a breath. His back was soaked through. Thank goodness the instructor was here. "Let's go practice," I said. He wouldn't dare start anything in the gym. I went to the corner and started throwing punches, and each one came out with a whistle behind it like something tearing. I wasn't training. I was chewing. Here's the part Chen Hao didn't know. Here's the part nobody knew. 2 years earlier, during the awakening ceremony, when they hook you up to the machine and dump heaven and earth spiritual energy into you to see what falls out, I awakened a special talent. Clone. Top tier. Genuinely one of the good ones. A clone with the same combat power as the original, and if the clone dies, you just grow a new one in 3 days, which makes you functionally very annoying to murder. The whole school lost its mind. School leaders came to shake my hand. For about 2 weeks I was famous. Then they tested my cultivation talent and got a D. A D. The academic equivalent of the machine looking at me, sighing, and going home early. With a D-rank cultivation talent, your absolute ceiling is Advanced Warrior, and an Advanced Warrior with an immortal clone is still just a very hard-to-kill guy who dies in the second wave of a beast tide. The school leaders stopped coming around. My 15 minutes ended, and that would have been the whole story, except for the readout only I could see. Current clone quantity, 1. Break through the next realm, and you may add 10 more. 10, not 1, 10. And it kept going. Every small realm I broke through plus 10. Every large realm plus 100. I had run the numbers so many times I could do them in my sleep. Become a real martial artist, and I'd have hundreds of me cultivating at the same time. A D-rank talent multiplied by 300 stops being a D-rank talent and starts being a natural disaster, which is exactly why I never told a living soul. Not my parents, not Fang Fan, not the school. There's an old saying about the tallest tree in the forest and what the wind does to it, and I had every intention of being a very average-looking shrub until the day I could afford not to be. I checked the number in my chest one more time. Almost there. Almost. Then the hall emptied out and I stayed for my extra hour, because I always stayed for my extra hour, and when the sun went orange and the whole place was just me and the sound of my own breathing, I walked over to the testing machine and hit it. 397. Again. 395. Again. 398. Again. 393. 400 was the line. 400 kilograms and I'd be an intermediate apprentice, and an intermediate apprentice is a small realm, and a small realm is 10 more of me. I wiped my face with a towel you could have wrung out over a bucket, and I said it out loud to the empty room like an idiot. "Chen Hao, you're right. This is a world where the strong rule, but you're wrong about one thing. I'm not weak." Nobody heard me. Fantastic speech. Zero audience. Very cool moment for me personally. Then I went home. Home is the Binhu low-rent blocks, which is a polite way of saying they built the towers so close together, the whole neighborhood is basically a canyon and sunlight has to file an application. 45 floors. We're on 19. The elevator costs money because the Yao Beast destroyed most of the power infrastructure outside the cities, and electricity is expensive now, so everybody walks, and I ran, because for a quasi-warrior stairs aren't a punishment, they're free training with a view of somebody's laundry. My sister opened the door before I finished knocking. Wu Mei. 15, and she smiles like somebody left a light on. Brother, you're back, the food's all ready. You've worked hard. I patted her head and went in, and the whole apartment smelled like dinner, and about 60% of the day fell off my shoulders in the doorway. Xiao Heng is back. My mother was at the table in her chair with a glass of cool boiled water already poured, because she knows I run home and she knows I'll be thirsty, and she has known this every single day for 2 years without once being asked. Chen Lan. She has a way of looking at you that makes you want to be a better person and also lie about how your day went. I drank the whole glass in about 4 seconds. Her legs don't work. I want to tell you it was something noble. It wasn't. 6 years ago, the city's defenses shot down a flying Yao beast during a beast tide, and the corpse came down through the roof of a market, and my mother happened to be standing under it. That's the world. You don't even have to lose to a monster. A dead one falling out of the sky is enough. My dad came in later smelling like a factory, shirt stuck to his back, and waved off the bowl May tried to hand him. Sit down first. I have something to say. He looked at me for a while. Registration for the martial arts track closes tomorrow. Have you thought it through? With your grades, you could take the arts track. Martial artist is… He stopped and started again. It's too dangerous. He wasn't wrong. Become a formal martial artist and you accept the national call-up, and the call-up mortality rate is the kind of number they don't print in large font. I looked at my mother's legs. Dad, I said, is it safe to be an ordinary person? Nobody said anything for a while. My father opened his mouth twice and closed it twice, and then he nodded, and that was the whole argument. Don't worry, I said, I've got clone. Out of every martial artist alive, I'm the hardest one to kill, which was true. It was just nowhere near the whole truth. Then I went to work, which meant running half an hour across the city to a villa district where the air smells different, and telling the security guard I was going to building 27 and getting buzzed in by a woman whose voice I knew. Shu Qi, Fang Yu's private tutor. War general rank, which at the time was so far above me, it was basically weather. Red martial outfit, blonde hair down her back, moves like the fight already ended, and she's just doing the choreography for fun. The training room in that basement was bigger than my apartment. It had equipment I'd only seen in videos. I tried not to stare at it like a kid at an aquarium and failed completely. You're finally here. Fang Yu's eyes lit up when she saw me. Ponytail, black training gear, an expression of pure sunshine that I had learned to be afraid of. Hurry up and release clone. What, my training wasn't good enough for you? Shu Qi said, laughing. Sister Shu, your fists are at perfect level. Fighting you is like being suppressed by a landslide. I don't learn anything. Wu Tian's style is like mine. Sparring with him will get me to major achievement. Sparring with him will get me to major achievement. Note the phrasing. Note that I am, grammatically, equipment. I summoned my clone. One thought, and there he was next to me. Same face, same clothes, expression like a mannequin, because a clone shares my soul, and when I'm not driving it, it just stands there being unsettling. Every time I see you give birth, it's amazing, Fang Yu said. How many times do I have to tell you, this is not giving birth, this is a summoning. They're basically the same. Someone pops out of somebody's belly. I sent my clone at her without another word, which she took as an invitation. Understand that Fang Yu is a violent lunatic with a beautiful face. She would leave my clone in a condition that made me flinch in sympathy from across the room. The only reason I did this job at all is that a clone recovers overnight, and if it actually dies, it takes 3 days, and there is no pain transfer, which is the single greatest feature of my entire life. I bowed to Shu Qi and went and sat by her because sometimes she'd correct my form, and free instruction from a war general is the kind of thing you show up for. How's it going? Have you broken 400 yet? 395, nearly. You've got a month before the exam. You'll get there. Wuhan University won't be a problem. I pressed my lips together and didn't answer because ordinary Wuhan University was not actually the plan anymore, but the plan lived in my chest with the clone counter and stayed there. Then she took a small green bottle out of her bag and threw it at me. Sister Shu, what is this? Body tempering pill, left over from back then. Eat it, it'll give you a few dozen kilograms. I have seen a body tempering pill exactly once, in a picture, on the martial artist store, with a price tag of 1 million yuan next to it. My father makes 10,000 a month. I pushed it back at her so fast I nearly threw it. I can't take this, it's too precious. Just take it, stop talking nonsense. She shoved it into my arms and walked off. I'm going to shower. If you're so capable, come to the bathroom and give it back to me. Ma'am, that is a war crime. Just take it, Fang Yu said from across the room, wiping down my ruined clone with the fond expression of a girl who has recently broken something. 1 million yuan is nothing to a war general. It may be nothing to her. It is not nothing to me. Why are you dragging your feet like this? If it's too valuable, pay her back when you're rich. Do you really have so little faith in yourself that you'll never earn 1 million? And that weirdly worked, because I am, at my core, an extremely competitive person about the specific topic of my own future. So I took out a pen, wrote an IOU on the spot, and handed it to Fang Yu to pass along, and she rolled her eyes at me so hard I heard it. An hour later, I put away a clone that had been beaten into an interesting new shape and walked home under a sky the color of a bruise, holding $1,000,000 in my pocket, thinking about how I was going to remember this for the rest of my life. Here's what I didn't know for another 3 years. Shuqi is a war general. War generals do not carry body tempering pills. That pill is quasi-warrior equipment. Asking a war general why she has one is like asking a fighter pilot why he's got a tricycle in the trunk. It was Fang Yu's pill. She'd given it to Shuqi to hand to me because she knew perfectly well I would never take it from her. I was completely oblivious, for years, just gloriously, magnificently thick. At home I went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and swallowed it. For a few minutes, nothing. Then heat. A fireball going off behind my ribs, and a warm current going through my meridians in waves like a tide coming in, and then black grime started pushing out of my skin all over my body, which smelled roughly like a drain and meant it was working. I turned the shower on and scrubbed and felt every muscle in my body come back rebuilt. And then, in my head, breakthrough, small realm. Clone quantity increased by 10. I stood in the shower with my mouth open like a fish. 11 clones, 11 of me, plus me. 12 people cultivating at once. And that's not even the good part. The good part is that a clone can merge back into the original body, and each one that merges adds 10% to my power. 11 clones is 110%. 400 kilograms plus 400 times 1.1 equals 840. I stood there dripping in the dark doing multiplication like a lunatic. My father was asleep on the top bunk 12 feet away. My family had no idea that the kid in their bathroom had just become, in a very specific and completely unprovable way, the strongest student in his class. The next morning I got to the school hall before anyone else and put my whole body into the testing machine. 447. I stood there with my eyes bugging out and my mouth open wide enough to park a scooter in. 50 kilograms. Overnight. You have to understand what that means. At my stage, a full day of maximum effort training earns you less than 1 kilogram. 1. Cultivation gets harder every step. 50 in a night is not progress, it's a typo, and that's the base. Merge 11 clones, and I'd be at 938. The admission line for the 2 famous schools last year was 900. The 2 famous schools, Kyoto University and Sea University, the 2 places on the planet that produce war gods. The absolute floor for their graduates is first-level battle general. I had gone to bed as a boy who couldn't afford one pill and woken up as a candidate for the best martial arts university in the country, and it had happened so fast that my brain hadn't finished filing the paperwork. Then, immediately, the terror. Because my punching power had been public record for 2 years, it was in the school files. If I walked into the national exam and suddenly produced 1,200 kilograms out of nowhere, somebody was going to have questions. In a world where laboratories exist and I am the only person alive with a clone talent that multiplies, questions is a word that ends with me on a slide. I needed a lie, a good one, and I needed an authority figure to believe it first so everyone else would inherit it from him. Instructor Gao Ming walked into the hall right on schedule and caught me mid-form and burst out laughing. Good lad. I could see it the second I walked in. Your fists have hit major achievement realm. They had, actually. That part wasn't a lie. 11 of me had been drilling body tempering fist all night in my dantian, and 11 times the practice hours had done what 11 times the practice hours does. Gao Ming is a big man with one eye and a voice like a gong, and the missing eye came from the Great Sea City Defense Force, which everyone in the country calls the meat grinder. He retired out of a place with a survival rate people don't like to say out loud, and he came back to teach teenagers to punch. Instructor, I said, there's something I've been keeping from you. Oh? Don't tell me your technique hit micro level. Ha ha ha. I found out that when I merge with my clone, the power boost isn't 10%, it's 100. He stopped laughing. That was the lie. It's a beautiful lie. It's beautiful because it's not really a lie. It's an accounting trick. I do get 100%. I just get it from 11 clones instead of 1. And because mutation is a word people accept instantly in a world where talent is a lottery, clone talents were already known to be freakish. One extra freak was believable. What? Really? I walked over to the testing machine, quietly merged 10 of my 11, and hit it. 894. Gao Ming made a noise I can only describe as a kettle. Not only doubled, your own base has hit 450? Someone gave me a body tempering pill last night. You've met a benefactor. But more importantly, your clone talent has mutated. It's like you indirectly awakened power doubling. He looked at me the way you look at a lottery ticket you haven't scratched yet. Wait here, I'm telling the principal. Then he turned and ran, and I heard the office door take a beating it hadn't earned. I'm told the conversation went roughly like this. Gao Ming, coming through the door at a speed the door had not been designed for. Principal, great news. The principal, looking at his now slightly trapezoidal door, could you not just walk in properly? Principal, you know me. I'm a roughneck from the army. I don't know any rules. If the door's broken, take it out of my salary. Damn it, you're a brute, and you still think you're right. Then Gao Ming told him, and the principal said 894 kilograms out loud twice because Lucheng No. 3 Middle School had never in its history produced a student admitted to the two famous schools, and a school that produces one gets to put it on the wall forever. How much should we reward him? And here's the part that gets me still. Gao Ming said, don't give him money. Why not? The kid's family is poor. His mother's legs are disabled. You give him money and he'll spend it on them, and it won't make him 1 gram stronger. Give him pills and quenching fluid instead. That's a man who had known me for 3 years and had my whole family budget figured out without ever asking a single question about it. So the school gave me 2 body-tempering pills, 1 million yuan each, handed over in a little green bottle like a packet of cough drops, plus 28 days of quenching body fluid at 200,000 a dose, which comes to a number I refuse to say out loud because it makes me nauseous. I bowed so hard I nearly headbutted him. Don't thank me. It's your own ability. He clapped my shoulder. Get into the 2 famous schools, and even with a weak cultivation talent, you've got a shot at War General. A War General with an immortal clone will be a name people know in this region. Instructor, I thought, you have no idea. And then I went back out to the hall and kept punching, because that's the actual answer to everything. I was still punching 2 hours later when Chen Hao came back for round 2. Wu Tian? He came through the doors like weather. Whatever was left of his patience had clearly evaporated overnight. What is it? I said. And here's the difference a day makes. Yesterday I said those same words with my stomach in a knot. Today I said them, and I was calm, because my fists were at the same realm as his, and my power was above his. And it turns out, confidence isn't a personality trait, it's just a number you know about yourself. You went to Fang Yu anyway. Have you completely forgotten what I told you? Who are you exactly? Her father? A school official? Why would I listen to you? His eyes went narrow. How dare you talk to me like... Young Master Chen, let's talk this out. The instructor's right in the office. Fang Fan stepped in with his hands up and his flare gun smile. Chen Hao turned and kicked him in the stomach. It was fast. That's the thing about people who train with professional sparring partners every day for money. They're fast in a way that has nothing to do with courage. Fang Fan went 3 meters and hit the floor and curled up around himself, and the sound he made is not a sound I enjoy remembering. I got to him first. Are you all right? I'm fine. He wasn't. There was sweat coming off his forehead in beads. The whole hall closed in around us. Gao Ming came out of the office. What happened here? Chen Hao crossed his arms and shrugged. I was giving Fang Fan some pointers on his technique, instructor. Who knew he was so weak he couldn't take 1 kick? I helped Fang Fan sit up. Then I stood. Then please, young Master Chen, give me some pointers on my technique. The hall went very quiet. Old Wu, forget it, Fang Fan hissed, grabbing my sleeve. You're no match for him. Chen Hao got there before I could answer. Fine. It's rare to see our classmate Wu Tian being so proactive. I'll tutor you for free today. He turned to Gao Ming with a grin that had been rehearsed. Instructor, he asked me, don't discourage his enthusiasm. Gao Ming looked at my face, then he looked at Chen Hao for a long moment. All right, he said. I allow the spar. I watched Chen Hao's expression do something complicated because he had expected the instructor to say no. Everybody had. Gao Ming had been protecting that kid's exam scores for 3 years the way you protect a crop. He didn't need to anymore. That's the thing about being the school's only shot at the 2 famous schools. It reallocates a lot of goodwill very quickly. Since the instructor agrees, Chen Hao said, walking toward me, this young master will teach you what a real major achievement body-tempering fist looks like. Then he was already in the air with his leg out. He likes kicks. I found out later it's because he enjoys the winner's pose afterward, 1 foot planted on the loser's chest, looking down. He'd done exactly that to Fang Fan 90 seconds earlier. In his head, I was the same job. Watch out! Fang Fan shouted, and around the hall people were already wincing in advance because the consensus in the room was that I was about to become a stain with a college entrance exam registration. My arm came up in an arc and caught his shin out of the air. The sound was flat and heavy, like meat hitting a table. Chen Hao took a step back with his eyes very wide. How is that possible? Around us, 40 people made the exact same face. I walked forward. Chen Hao, it seems your strength isn't all that great after all. No wonder Fang Yu never looks at you. Turns out you're the toad. That did it. That did it beautifully. His whole face went a shade I'd describe as arterial. Arrogant fool. To keep up with my speed, your fists must have reached major achievement too. But if you think that lets you contend with me, you're ridiculous. You said you'd give me pointers. I curled a finger at him. Talking is free. Come on. He leaped. Several meters. Gone in an instant. Fist coming in like something fired. Cannon fist. It's the killer move out of body tempering fist. You gather every gram of the body's power into a single point and let it out all at once, and it's built entirely around the assumption that you hit harder than the other guy, which was honestly the nicest thing he could have done for me. Because here's my actual problem. He'd been at major achievement longer. He'd been sparring with a professional martial artist every single day for years, in a real fight, with feints and reads. And experience. A slightly stronger version of me still probably loses to him. But he wasn't doing a real fight. He was doing a strength contest. He was doing the one event I could not lose. I merged 10 clones, put every bit of it into my right arm, and met him head on. The two fists hit, and the noise of it went through the building. The air did something unpleasant. Chen Hao went backwards several meters with his arm shaking and a look on his face like someone had just told him gravity was optional. Impossible. How can your strength be that great? You're too weak, I said. And then I went after him, because we were both martial artists, and martial artists who go soft in the middle of an exchange become case studies, and because, let's be honest, I'd been waiting a day and a half for this, and I am not a saint. 3 steps, and then I was on him like something let off a chain. In the air, everything gathered into one point. Same move. Cannon fist. He saw it coming, and his face went gray, because he could feel it, and it was about 3 times what he had just thrown at me. And here's what I love about this. He could have dodged. He absolutely could have dodged. But dodging would have meant that the nobody was scary, and Chen Hao couldn't do it. That kid could not physically make himself admit, in front of 40 classmates, that I was worth stepping back from. So he set his feet and put both fists up. The hall exploded with the sound. He went off his feet, backward, into the wall. The wall cracked. He came down off it and stayed down. All right, stop there. Somebody take Chen Hao to the infirmary, Gao Ming said, and I'd bet money the man was enjoying himself. 40 people looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Gao Ming gave them the cover story before the rumors could build their own. Wu Tian's punching power hasn't improved much. His clone talent mutated. After merging, his strength increases by 100%. 100%? That's basically power doubling. Having clone talent is one thing, but a mutation on top of it. Some people have all the luck. His base is around 400, so doubled he's over 800. That's elite university. With a little more, he's 2 famous schools territory. Everyone did the math at the same time, and the whole room inhaled. Fong Fan was still on the floor holding his stomach, staring at me with his mouth open. He told me afterward exactly what went through his head, and I'm quoting him directly because it's perfect. I'd been worried my brother got a Land Rover. Turns out my brother got a rocket while I wasn't looking. I went and crouched next to him. You all right? Should I take you to the infirmary? I'm fine. Honestly, I feel better already, mostly from watching you beat the hell out of Chen Hao. Look, I want to be clear about something. I'm not magnanimous. I'm 16. There's a saying about revenge being a dish best served cold, and I've never understood it at all. Cold food is worse. Everyone knows this. You too, Gao Ming said from the doorway. With me. He walked ahead without looking back. We're going to my training room. I'm putting you both in quenching body fluid. Fang Fan, this time is for Wu Tian's sake. There won't be a next time. Fang Fan's eyes went the size of dinner plates. Quenching body fluid is 200,000 a dose. Kids like us don't get within smelling distance of it. Why is he started, and I just told him. The sponsorship, all of it. It was going to be public by lunch anyway. That's incredible. With school funding, you're guaranteed 2 famous schools. Tsk, tsk. Never thought I'd have a brother who's a top student. No, wait, my brother's going to be a war general. He was envious. He was also genuinely happy for me. Not many people can do both at once and mean both of them. The fluid is blood red, and when Gao Ming poured a dose into the tub, the water went crimson instantly and started bubbling like it was boiling, which it wasn't. It just felt like it should be. We got in. Oh my god, Fong Fan said, sliding down to his chin. This is amazing. It's like every muscle is being massaged by a beautiful woman. I did not respond to that. There was no correct response to that. But he wasn't wrong about the effect. Every ache from the day dissolved. It's an essence extracted from Yao Beast blood. 1 bucket contains the concentrated essence of over 100 of them, and it doesn't just remove fatigue, it goes into you and rebuilds things. We climbed out an hour later when the water had gone clear and Fang Fan was punching the air with both fists. I feel amazing. Let's go test. Fang Fan hit the machine first. 445, 30 kilograms up. He nearly cried. Not bad, Gao Ming said. The fluid's effect is proportional to how hard you've been training. You haven't been slacking. Then I hit it. 503. Over 50 kilograms, Fang Fan shouted. Gao Ming rubbed his chin. You took a pill last night, didn't you? The medicine hadn't fully absorbed. The fluid tempered it in. That's why. So that was my day. Woke up at 397, went to bed at 503, publicly humiliated the richest kid in school, got the most expensive bath of my life for free, and in a villa on the other side of the city. That same evening, Chen Hao was lying in his own tub of quenching body fluid, healing his arm and looking at the ceiling. I know exactly what he did next, because I made it my business to find out later. He picked up his bracelet and called a man named Ah Chen who runs the Bloody Bar and who has a stable of quasi-warrior thugs on payroll, men who deliberately suppress their own cultivation at advanced apprentice, right below the line where the state can conscript you. Cowards, professionally. Someone offended me. A student at number 3 middle school. Name's Wu Tian, he lives at. Understood. I'll send some people to take care of him. Wait. And I have to give it to him. This next part is the only genuinely clever thing Chen Hao ever did in his life. Don't alert him. Watch him first, and then take care of him the day before the college entrance exam. Because that's the thing, you don't have to kill somebody to end them. The national exam is the one door. Break my arm the night before and I don't sit it, and if you don't sit it, you don't get in, and if you don't get in, you spend the rest of your life as a self-taught nobody with a talent nobody funds. Repeating the year isn't allowed on the martial track. There is no second attempt. Understood, Ah Chen said. Young Master Chen is indeed wise. Meanwhile, I was back in that basement villa getting stared at by 2 women like a rare species. You've been hiding this really well. Shuqi walked around me in a slow circle. I was worried you wouldn't get into Wuhan University, that's why I gave you the pill. Sister Shu, he's a classic pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger type, Fang Yu said. He's read too many online novels and thinks he's the protagonist, which, in fairness, the clone only changed after I took the pill and hit intermediate apprentice, I said, deploying the lie for the second time. Who knows if that's true? Let him off, Shuqi said, laughing. Maybe you two will be classmates in college. I turned to Fang Yu. Classmates, you're at 760. Even with another month, you can't hit 900. How would you? Fang Yu looked at me, the way you look at a dog doing arithmetic. Do you think you're the only one in the world with a special talent? Xiao Wu, Shuqi said helpfully. Fang Yu has power doubling, which is a little bit similar to your situation, isn't it? Fang Yu lifted her chin so high I could count her teeth. Power doubling. So her 760 was the number she showed people. Her real one was over 1500, and she'd been suppressing it every single time she sparred with me for months, which meant every bruise on my clone had been delivered at a fraction of what she could actually do. Our class is full of people hiding things, I said. Xiao Wu. Shuqi's voice changed slightly. One warning. When you merge a clone, its immortality goes away too. That's the whole reason clone is ranked top tier, not the power, the coming back. To put it bluntly, Fang Yu said from the side, you've picked up a sesame seed and dropped a watermelon. I nodded and looked appropriately thoughtful and did not say the obvious thing, which is that a watermelon is only a problem if you have one watermelon. A week later, Shuqi told us she was leaving. She did it at the end of a session, while Fang Yu was still catching her breath and I was putting away a clone that had spent the last hour being redecorated. I'm going back to the front. You'll both be fine. Fang Yu stopped catching her breath. Your fists are at perfect level. What's left to hone? That's exactly the problem. Shuqi was packing a bag and not looking at either of us, which I have since learned is how she conducts every hard conversation. Perfect level is where technique stops helping you. There is nothing above it that you can drill. You reach for a concept instead, and nobody can practice reaching for a concept. You can only stand somewhere it might happen to you. And the place it happens is a war zone. The place it happens is real combat against something that fully intends to kill you for long enough that you stop thinking. She zipped the bag. It's a stupid plan. It's also the only one anybody has ever had. Then what are we supposed to do? Your universities both have a demon lock tower, live beasts, graded floors, a doctor 40 seconds away. She finally looked up. Use it until you hate it, and then use it more. It is the safe version of the unsafe thing I'm going to go and do. Then she flicked my forehead on the way past. Hard. The way you'd flick a lamp that isn't working. Little wolf cub, pay her back one day. Pay who back? Whoever gave you that pill, she said, and left. I stood there for a full 4 seconds and did not get it, not even slightly. Across the room, Fang Yu was doing an extremely poor impression of a person uninterested in the conversation. That was my first real martial arts teacher. 4 months, twice a week, unpaid, for a boy her student enjoyed hitting. The next few weeks blurred. 2 more pills. 28 days of quenching fluid in the instructor's room. 11 of me drilling the same fist form every waking hour. Insights piling up like snow. 575 by the end of the first week. Chen Hao stopped coming to school entirely. 601 the day before the exam. 601 and 11 clones merged puts me at 1200, and I stood in front of that battered school testing machine and let myself grin like an idiot for about 4 seconds. And that's exactly when a man in a suit and sunglasses walked into the hall. He stopped 5 meters away, which is a distance chosen by somebody who knows what 5 meters means. Don't be nervous. I'm Fang Yu's bodyguard. I've never seen you before. My hand was already behind my back on my bracelet, on Gao Ming's number. He saw me do it and did not care in the slightest, which told me everything about the gap between us. I'm a bodyguard who stays in the shadows. Enough talk. Someone has been watching you. You should be careful. Tomorrow's the exam. And then he turned around and left because as far as he was concerned, he had just wasted his afternoon on a high schooler. I called Fang Yu. Oh, you mean Uncle Wei? Her voice went serious in a way I'd never heard from her. The night Sister Shu left, my people outside spotted someone following you. They hadn't moved on you, so I had it looked into quietly. Who is it? A small-time hoodlum, advanced apprentice, works for a man called Chen, who owns the Bloody Bar. Have you offended a bar owner? I don't know any Chen brothers or Dog brothers. I've never been in a bar. Then be careful. I had my doubts before. Now I think they're planning to do something to you before the exam. Everything went very cold and very clear. That's what it was for. Not revenge. Timing. Somebody wanted me to miss tomorrow. Thank you, I said, and I meant it in a way I didn't have the vocabulary for at 16. Really? Do you want Uncle Wei to walk you home? No need. If they want to make a move, let them make it. I was already smiling. Don't forget, I have clone. She laughed. Heh heh. True, see you at the exam. So here's what I did. I went into the changing room and summoned a clone. We swapped clothes. Then I took his face in both hands and pushed his cheeks up into a smile because a clone I'm not actively driving has the facial expression of a bus seat, and a boy walking home from school with the face of a bus seat attracts attention. Smile, I told it. Then I sent it out the front, and I put on a hat and sunglasses and followed 40 meters back like the world's least convincing spy. It took about 90 seconds to spot him. Kid on a bicycle with bleached hair and headphones, pedaling slow, staying exactly 1 street behind. 10 minutes later, my clone turned into a side alley, and I heard shouting. I stopped at the corner and closed my eyes and watched through the clone's eyes instead. 18 of them, all advanced apprentice, all at 900 kilograms or better. One older guy whose fists had hit major achievement, and every single one of them was carrying a steel pipe. They beat my clone into the ground in under a minute. Even with a major achievement technique, 18 against 1 with weapons isn't a fight, it's a chore. I stood in the dark around the corner and watched myself get destroyed from the inside of my own face, and I want to tell you something honest. It did not feel clever. It felt like standing outside your own funeral. If Fang Yu hadn't called me that afternoon, that would have been me, actual me, arms broken, in a hospital bed tomorrow morning while they read out the exam instructions in a room I wasn't in. I heard someone call one of them Brother Chen. I don't know a Brother Chen. Poor students don't get personally targeted by bar owners. Somebody hired this. And I'd offended exactly one person in my entire life. Chen Hao hadn't come to school since I put him through a wall, hadn't retaliated, hadn't said a word, and Chen Hao is not a magnanimous man. So that's what he'd been doing with his month. I waited in the dark until they left, then went into the alley and put away what was left of my clone and ran home. And in the Emperor Garden Villas that night, Chen Hao opened his bracelet and scrolled through photographs sent to him by a man called Chen, and he smiled. Wu Tian, this is what you get. Let's see how you get into the exam hall tomorrow. June 7th. The street outside Luqing No. 3 Middle School was packed solid. Parents, students, a line of soldiers with real rifles, reporters with cameras set up on the pavement because the martial exam gets more coverage than the academic one by an order of magnitude. We're live outside Luqing No. 3 Middle School. The martial examination begins at 8, testing punching power. Can Lu City produce a champion who makes it into the 2 famous schools this year? This is Fang Lei reporting. Around us, parents were doing what parents do. Son, keep it up. Don't worry, Dad. Your son has the potential to be a war god. At the pinnacle of martial arts, I reign supreme over the world. I, He Tao, have never been inferior to anyone in my life. Everyone's kid was a war god that morning. Statistically, this was going to be a rough afternoon for a lot of families. Fang Yu arrived with a wall of bodyguards and started scanning the crowd. Smart devices aren't allowed inside, so she couldn't call me. Chen Hao got out of a very expensive car with a very expensive entourage and jogged over the second he saw her. Fang Yu, long time no see. She looked through him like a window. He didn't even flinch. Say what you like about the man, his self-esteem was structurally reinforced. Which elite university are you going to? Why don't we both go to Jiangnan Martial Arts University? Best school after the 2 famous schools, they say. Who told you I was going to an elite university? He blinked. He'd seen her scores, around 750 a month ago. Even at 800, she couldn't reach the two famous schools, so obviously she meant she was going somewhere worse. Fang Fan. Fang Yu walked straight past him. Why isn't Wu Tian with you? Miss Fang, I'm looking for him too. We agreed to walk in together, but I couldn't find him this morning. It's almost 8. Her jaw was tight. And Chen Hao, who had spent the whole night looking at photographs of a boy being taken apart in an alley, said, in the most magnanimous voice you've ever heard, maybe they overslept. Fang Yu, you may not know this, but ordinary people like them get nervous before big events. Stop looking down on people. Old Wu doesn't get nervous. Fang Fan straightened his back and stared him down, which was possibly the bravest thing that little coward ever did, and he only did it because there were soldiers 30 meters away, and Chen Hao causing trouble on exam morning meant disqualification and possibly prison. You've got some nerve. I've always been very bold. Very good. Chen Hao gave him a long look. Then he turned back to Fang Yu and smiled his best smile. Let's go in. I don't think Wu Tian is going to make it. Who says I can't come? I want you to know I had been standing behind him for about 4 seconds waiting for exactly that line, and it was worth every one of them. I came out of the crowd in a tracksuit with absolutely nothing wrong with me. Old Wu, Fang Fan nearly tackled me. You almost missed your deadline, Fang Yu said, walking over. And Chen Hao just stood there. I know what was going through his head, because it was all over his face like subtitles. Shouldn't this guy be in a hospital? Why does he not have a single mark on him? Did Ah Chen take my money and stage a show? No, Ah Chen wouldn't dare. I walked past him and made sure my voice carried. So some despicable person sent people to beat up my clone last night, scared me so badly I couldn't sleep, nearly overslept. Then I stopped, turned around, and looked right at him. Hey, young Master Chen, do you know who that scoundrel might be? I have never in my life seen a man's face muscles perform such a difficult routine. He could not say yes. He could not say no with any dignity. He was standing in a public street in front of Fang Yu with a reporter 40 meters away being asked to guess the identity of himself. How would I know? Maybe you've offended someone. And then he walked into the school very fast. I watched him go, and somewhere in that walk it landed on him. I could see the exact moment. Clone talent. The kid has clone talent. How could I forget he has clone talent? 18 professionals, a month of surveillance, and he'd beaten up a copy. He also worked out, right about then, that he'd used up his only shot, because after today, I'd be an exam champion with a 2 famous school score, and touching a national champion is the kind of thing that even a war general father can't smooth over. Was it him? Fang Yu said quietly beside me. Him or nobody? Hey, what riddles are you two doing? Fang Fan said. I clapped his shoulder. Don't overthink it. Just do your best and don't be nervous. Nervous? Me? Old Wu, you underestimate me. I, Fang Fan, he threw his arms out. With countless clones and unparalleled luck, will shine today. I stared at him for a while. Where exactly did you get clones? Don't you know? He looked genuinely surprised that this required explaining. Every class in the world has a Fang Fan in it. There are millions of us. We're everywhere. If one of us fails an exam, another one passes it. It balances out. Fang Yu looked at me. I looked at Fang Yu. Neither of us had anything at all. That is the same man who, 4 minutes earlier, had stood in front of a general's son with soldiers 30 meters away and told him to stop looking down on people. I have never once managed to hold both of those facts in my head at the same time, and I have known him since we were 12. 8 o'clock, single file into the testing rooms. Fang Fan came out grinning with all his teeth. 465. That's great. And it was. His goal was an ordinary university, and 465 walks in. Then they called my name. The machine inside was 3 times the size of a normal one. See university hardware, they said, rated for formal martial artists, not just apprentices, and accurate to a degree that ordinary machines aren't. Candidate, 1 minute to prepare, 1 punch only. 1 punch, that's it. Which sounds unfair. People get nervous, people mistime it, but that's deliberate. The Ministry of Education wants to know your heart nature as much as your strength, because if the exam hall makes you shake, what exactly do you think you're going to do the first time something with 4 rows of teeth comes over a wall at you? The country would rather find out here than pay for it later. I breathed. I remembered the way the force starts in the feet and goes up through the waist. I merged 10 clones, and I hit it. 1,200 kilograms. I stood there looking at the number with a stupid grin spreading across my face. 2 famous schools. Done. What I didn't know is that there was a room with a screen in it, and on the other side of that screen were the principal, Gao Ming, an official from the Ministry of Education, and a brigadier general from the army, and they had been sitting there all morning watching kids punch. They'd seen Chen Hao do 810 with a B-rank talent and said flattering things about his future. They'd seen Fang Yu do 860 base, 1720 with power doubling, which she finally stopped hiding, and the ministry man had mentioned casually that this particular girl was of the Fang family of Kyoto, which made the brigadier general sit up because the Fang family has a war god in it. Then the principal saw my name come up and straightened his back, and the ministry official noticed him do it and asked who this one was. Just wait and see, the principal said, being extremely pleased with himself. Then the number came up, and both of them stood up out of their chairs. 1200? How is that possible? Does he have power doubling too? A quasi-warrior can't exceed 1,000. He must have a special talent. Old Yu, am I right? This child is named Wu Tian, the principal said. At the awakening, it was found that he possesses clone talent. Clone talent. How much cultivation talent does he have? And the principal, and I love this man, but, the principal sighed. This child's aptitude is slightly lacking. Only D. I'm told the room deflated like a tire. Alas, what a pity. If he had a B, the country would pour resources into him until he was a war god. The official shook his head. A war god with a clone is a man you can send anywhere a crisis appears. It's worth more than a dozen ordinary war gods. Sigh, I can only hope he makes senior war general someday and contributes what he can. It's very difficult, the brigadier general said. D rank generally caps at advanced warrior. Gao Ming couldn't take it anymore and interrupted. Not necessarily. His comprehension isn't weak at all. He's at major achievement in his technique, same as the top two. Oh? Then there's still a chance. A room full of powerful men deciding out loud that my ceiling was low, using data I had personally faked. I have to say, that's the most fun I'd had in weeks. Outside, Fang. Fan was waiting. How'd it go? 1200. Wow, both famous schools are going to fight over you. Still not as good as young Miss Fang. I looked at Fang Yu. Around 1720. She examined her nails. I want to note, for the record, that even without power doubling, she was at 860 on raw base. How many pills does a person have to eat to get to 860 at 16? Pay-to-win players are genuinely amazing. All right, humanities exam. Don't fail the academics and embarrass yourselves. Yes, can't get complacent. The whole thing runs one day now. Martial in the morning, academics until 9 at night. When we came out, the sky was black and all three of us made the same noise at the same time. That wasn't even as hard as the mocks, Fang Fan said. Wu Tian. Fang Yu was getting into a car with the bodyguards folding around her. I'm going back to Kyoto. See you at C University, September 1st. I waved at the car until it turned the corner. I really envy you, Fang Fan said, watching it go. Going to university with your goddess. Be honest. Have you two confirmed that kind of relationship? I rolled my eyes so hard I saw my own brain. You've been reading too many novels. Look at her family. Why would she be interested in me? Focus on becoming a martial artist and stop thinking about unrealistic things. And then I walked home, because it was true. I did have feelings about Fang Yu, roughly in the shape of, this is my friend and she is terrifying. But this world eats people. Without power, surviving is a luxury. I had a talent I could count on one hand's worth of people in history having, and a family living 19 floors up in a canyon, and I did not have the spare capacity for anything else. First, I make them safe. Then we'll see. That night, in the Emperor Garden Villas, Chen Hao heard my number from a classmate and nearly took a table apart with his bare hands. Then he heard Fang Yu's number, which was worse. She's been hiding power doubling this entire time. No wonder she laughed at me. Their talents are worse than mine. Why did they get the special ones? Then his bracelet rang, and the picture on it made him sit up very straight. Dad, you were looking for me? I just heard that a genius named Wu Tian came out of your number. 3 middle school with 1,200 kilograms. I didn't expect his name would reach even you. Nonsense. It's rare for Lu City to produce a top scorer. Every force in the province is paying attention. Even if I wanted not to know, I couldn't. A pause. And I've also heard that you seem to have a conflict with him. It was a minor disagreement, Chen Hao said, and then, in the manner of idiots everywhere, explained the whole thing to his father. I would pay actual money for a recording of the silence that followed. You call that a minor conflict? You almost ruined a man's college entrance exam. That is a blood grudge. The only reason he hasn't done anything is that he doesn't have the power yet. Him? He got lucky with a clone talent. With his cultivation aptitude, he'll never even become a warrior. What threat is he to me? Foolish. And I've never met General Chen's father, but I'm told the man's voice can strip paint. If he'd gotten into a regular university, or even an elite one, fine, he'd never make war general. But he's going to a too famous school. You have no idea what those resources are. Terrifying. Then what do we do? I've already made an enemy of him, and now everyone's watching him. Who dare touch him? At least you're not stupid enough to try. A long breath. The exam's over. It's too late for anything else. We apologize. We resolve it. You want me to? I'll handle it. I'm coming back tomorrow. Don't cause me any more trouble. And then he hung up, and his son sat in a 200 square meter room feeling something he had never in his life had to feel before, which is small. 2 days later, the offers came in. Kyoto University sent a message from a man named Fang Hongtao, and it offered me 100 credits. I had to look up what a credit was. 1 credit is 10,000 yen. So Kyoto University, one of the 2 greatest martial arts institutions on the planet, looked at the boy who topped the city and offered him 1,000,000 yen, which is 1 body tempering pill, which is 1 day of progress. I found out later what he'd said in the meeting. With his talent, even with our focused training, it would be difficult for him to become a general. So, bring him in, park him at the back, and if the clone thing pays off in 20 years, congratulations to us. Then Gao Ming called and told me the Chen family wanted to apologize in person, and the number attached to the apology was 100 million yuan. Do you want to go? Instructor, I said, is there any chance this is a setup? That's why I'm going with you. Junshin Tower, top floor, private room the size of my old apartment with a view of the whole city lit up like circuitry. I got there 40 minutes early and stood in the stairwell across the corridor, watching the door. You may think that's paranoid for a business dinner. 2 weeks earlier, 18 men had waited for me in an alley with steel pipes. Being careful is not a personality flaw, it's a survival adaptation. Nobody came but the Chins. General Chen turned out to be a big square man in his 40s with a handshake that could crush a hubcap and a smile that reached exactly 0% of his eyes. He poured the tea himself, which is a thing powerful men do when they want to look humble and know you'll notice they're doing it. Young Master Wu, my son was ignorant. He has come to apologize. Chen Hao stood up and bowed to me. 90 degrees, held it. I want you to understand what I was looking at. A month earlier, this guy had stood in a school hall and told me a toad shouldn't dream of swan meat. Now he was folded in half in a private room, apologizing to the toad because the toad had scored 1,200 kilograms on a national exam. Nothing about him had changed. Nothing about me had changed except a number. That's the whole world in one bow. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Young Master Wu, please accept this small token. General Chen pushed 2 cards across the table. 100 million yuan, and a C University credit card with 10,000 credits on it. 10,000 credits. Another 100 million. 200 million yuan for a kicked friend and a beaten clone. My father earns 10,000 a month. I looked at the cards for a while. Then I picked them up. General Chen, you've given me a lot of face tonight, so I'll say this plainly. As of right now, my grudge with Chen Hao is wiped clean. I won't bring it up again. And I meant it too. That's what makes the next part so good. I said my goodbyes and left, and I was 3 floors down in the elevator when General Chen turned to his son in that room and explained what he'd actually just done. I know this because there was a camera in that room, a pinhole camera recording the entire reconciliation, so that if I ever came back for Chen Hao, there'd be footage of me accepting money and declaring the matter closed. That was the point of the whole dinner, not the apology, the receipt. And the second thing. Dad, why did you give him a C University card? 100 million in cash would have been enough. Because the card is registered to his name. It cannot be refunded. It cannot be transferred. It can only be spent at C University. So he was choosing between Kyoto and C. Now he isn't. A pause, and then the line I think about more than I'd like to. Kyoto University makes war generals. C University makes war gods, and it makes corpses. Half of them do not graduate. Son, only a dead man is guaranteed not to be a threat to you. He paid 200 million yuan to nudge me toward the school. Most likely to kill me. Credit where it's due. That is genuinely excellent strategy. It cost him nothing he'd miss. It made him look magnanimous in front of his own son, and there was no version of it that could ever be traced back to him. There's only one flaw in it, and it took me 2 years to be in a position to point it out to his face. C University was where I was going anyway. I went home with 200 million yuan and did the only thing I have ever wanted to do with money. I bought my family a house, not a nice apartment, a villa in a compound on the good side of Lu City. And I want to tell you the deciding feature because it wasn't the garden or the number of bathrooms. It had a basement, a real one, reinforced with an alloy door. When the beast tide comes and the sirens go off, people on the 19th floor of a low-rent block have nowhere to go but down 45 flights of stairs into a street full of things with teeth. People with a basement close a door. The compound's security guards are certified martial artists. There's a garrison outpost 800 meters away. I walked the whole perimeter twice before I signed anything, checking sightlines like a lunatic, and my father followed me around, asking why I kept looking at the walls. My mother cried when she saw the ground floor bedroom with no stairs in it. May ran through every room in the house at a dead sprint, twice, and then came back and hugged me around the middle and didn't say anything at all. That's what the money was for. All of it. Every single thing that comes after this, every fight, every corpse, every stupid risk comes out of a bedroom with no stairs in it. Then, that evening, 20 million yuan landed in my account from a number I didn't know. Young Master Wu. The voice on the other end was doing its absolute best. This is Ah Chen. Some of my men did something extremely blind a while ago. That money is my apology. From today, your family is my family. If they lose a single hair, I'll chop off one of my own fingers. I let that sit for a second. Here's the thing about Ah Chen. He runs a bar and 18 thugs, and he's an advanced apprentice who deliberately keeps himself there so the state can't draft him. He is, by any measure, a bad person. He also has an extremely accurate sense of where he sits in the food chain, and he had just watched a high schooler he tried to cripple come out of the exam hall at 1,200 kilograms. Keep an eye on my family while I'm at university, I said. That's all. Understood. Absolutely understood. And to his enormous credit, he actually did. The rest of the summer was arithmetic. I spent 22 million on 60 doses of quenching body fluid and 10 body tempering pills, and then I made the mistake of telling Gao Ming what I wanted to spend the rest on. I want to find somewhere with real fighting. My technique is stuck at major achievement. Micro level only comes from actual combat. Absolutely not. He didn't say it. He detonated it. I have been shouted at by war gods since, and none of them managed the volume. What you need right now is punching power, not technique. Your cultivation talent is already poor. If you burn this summer chasing comprehension, when exactly are you planning to become a formal martial artist? Get the numbers first. Everything else comes after the numbers. I nodded and said yes, instructor, and did exactly what he told me. It was the best advice anybody gave me that year, and the beautiful part is that he was giving it to a kid with a D-rank talent because he thought I had no time to waste. He was right for completely the wrong reasons. That happens more than people admit. Then C University sent someone, not a message, a person. Song Mei, director of admissions, flew to Lu City and sat in our principal's office and waited for me. Gao Ming caught my eye behind her back and winked, which in instructor code means let them bid against each other, stall, squeeze. I looked at her and said, I'm not going to Kyoto. I've already decided on C University. Gao Ming's face did something I can only describe as a small internal landslide. But I wasn't being noble and I wasn't being stupid. I had a card with 10,000 credits welded to my name that only worked at one school on Earth, and I had also spent a month reading everything I could find about both places, and C University's entire operating philosophy was written in one line on their admissions page. We do not care about your talent. That's it. That's the whole thing. Kyoto assesses you, sorts you, and pours resources on whoever the assessment likes. C University throws 1,500 freshmen into a building and ranks them every month and gives everything to whoever is winning. Kyoto would have looked at my D and put me in a drawer. C University doesn't check the drawer. C University checks the scoreboard. For a guy whose entire secret is that his scoreboard number has nothing to do with his talent, that's not a school. That's a machine built specifically for me. Song Mei gave me 500 credits from the school, and then, after a pause, another 1,500 out of her own pocket. That's personal, she said. Don't tell the finance department. Then she leaned forward. One piece of advice, since you've already committed. Do not advance to formal martial artist before you report in September. I can't tell you why yet. Trust me. Which is an incredibly annoying thing to say to a 16-year-old, and I called Fang Yu about it approximately 4 minutes after she left. Oh, that. Fang Yu sounded like she was eating something. The martial body. The what? It's a secret method. You can only cultivate it as an apprentice. The moment you become a formal martial artist, the window closes forever. There are 4 bodies. Black Tortoise doubles your power. White Tiger doubles your speed. Vermilion Bird lets you attack with fire and preloads you for flame intent later. Azure Dragon permanently raises your cultivation talent by 1 full rank. I sat down on the floor of my new villa. Permanently raises your cultivation talent by 1 full rank. D to C. It doesn't sound like much. It's the difference between a ceiling of advanced warrior and a ceiling of war general. It's a different life. The school funds one of them for free, she said. Pick carefully. And Wu Tian, the black tortoise, needs the brain marrow of a demon king. Don't get excited, they're expensive. So that was my summer. 80 more body tempering pills at $1 million each, 80 million yuan, 90 pills total, 1 a day, every day, like the world's most expensive vitamin regimen, quenching fluid every night, 11 of me drilling in the dark. August 30th, 690 kilograms. I went to say goodbye to Gao Ming and found him in his training room doing what he always did, which is hitting things. He tempered his own arms and legs over 7 or 8 years, bone by bone, on a soldier's salary with no funding and no sponsor and one eye. That's what the process costs when nobody is helping you. He gave me the same speech he gives everyone. Don't be arrogant. Don't get killed. Call your mother. I got to the door and then I turned around because I had been carrying this for 2 years and he was the only person I could say it to. Instructor, I forgot to tell you something. My goal is to become the god of war. Gao Ming looked at me for a long moment. Understand who I'm saying this to. This is a man who wanted exactly that when he was 17. He went to the meat grinder to get it. He came back with one eye and the rank of advanced soldier and a job teaching teenagers to punch, and he has never once said a bitter word about it in front of a student. He could have laughed. It would have been the correct response statistically. A D-rank talent announcing he's going to be one of 300 people on the planet. Good lad, he said. I underestimated your ambition. And that was that. I flew to Great Sea City the next morning. The first thing you notice at Great Sea City Airport is that a third of the people in it are soldiers, and they're all from somewhere else. They rotate them in from every province in the country. They rotate them in because the ones already here keep needing replacing. Nobody says that out loud. It's just visible, in the way a room full of young men with duffel bags and no local accents is visible. Great Sea City is the closest major city to the Pudong War Zone. The wall is 40 kilometers east. Everyone here lives with that. Song Mei met the freshman at the terminal and she opened with a number. This year, Sea University admits 1,500 students. Somebody behind me made a noise. Kyoto takes over 5,000. Yes, she said without turning around. Fewer of you, which means more resources per head, and it means the person who beats you to first place is a person you will actually have met. Congratulations. Get on the bus. The bus ride was 30 minutes of freshmen sizing each other up out loud, which is its own kind of entertainment. Fang Yu, the one from Kyoto, power doubling talent. That's nothing. Han Yu is coming here. S-rank talent. They're saying war god potential. Guo Yan's the scary one. Her fists are already at micro level and she has never been in a real fight in her life. Not one. Pure comprehension. There's a girl who can turn invisible. There's a guy, said someone directly behind me, who scored 1,200 in Lu City with a mutated clone talent. D-rank cultivation though. Yeah. Shame. I looked out the window and watched the wall go by in the distance and did not say a single word. At the gate, I met the Chen twins, Chen Hai and Chen Lei, identical, and one of them talks approximately 4 times as much as the other, and after 2 years, I still can't reliably tell you which. Are you Wu Tian, the clone guy? Brother, you have to teach me how to get a talent like that. Sure. Step 1, be born. See, said the other twin, I like him. Then we walked through the school gate, and here is where Sea University explains itself to you. The gate is enormous, and it is not made of stone or steel. It's made of demon king bones. You don't get told this. You feel it. You walk under that arch, and something goes down your spine like a thorn dragged across it, and every single freshman in that line flinched at the same moment, and behind us the gate said absolutely nothing at all, because it didn't have to. That's the welcome. This is a school built out of the corpse of a thing that used to eat cities. Please enjoy your studies. Then the sky went dark for a second, and Principal He Wenshan walked down out of it. Walked, not flew. There's a difference, and everyone in that courtyard knew it. War gods cannot fly. That's the flat rule of this world. Only what comes after war god can, and there is no official name for what comes after war god on the human side of things. They just call it transcendent and change the subject. He came down through the air one step at a time like a man descending an invisible staircase, and 1,500 teenagers forgot how to breathe in unison. His speech was 4 minutes long. I remember one line. At many schools, you will be advised to be humble, to keep your abilities in reserve, to not stand out. He looked across all of us. Do not do that here. Here, you hide your strength and you get nothing. The resources go to the visible, which is a genuinely funny thing to say to me, personally, because for the next 10 months, my entire strategy would consist of showing them exactly as much as I needed to, and not 1 gram more. Because at Sea University, you don't get a dorm room, you earn one. There are 4 ranking lists. Virtual Arena, which measures reaction and judgment. War God Tower, which measures raw punching power. Demon Lock Tower, which measures whether you can actually kill things. And the Combined Points List, which is all 3 stacked together, and which decides everything. First place gets 100,000 credits a month. That's 1 billion yuan. 1,000th place gets 500. And the lists reset every month, forever, for 4 years. The Virtual Arena went first. You lie down in a pod and wake up in a field with a knife in your hand and a wolf comes at you. Then 10. Then 100. I killed the 1. I killed the 10. The 100 killed me in about 9 seconds. Being torn apart by 100 simulated wolves is an experience your body files under real, regardless of what your brain knows. Score, 85. rank 12, and falling steadily as more results came in, like watching your own stock crash in real time. Chen Hai scored 98 and came third overall, and I wanted on record that he was extremely gracious about it for almost 4 minutes. By the end, I was 375th among the boys, out of 700 and something. Here's the thing about the virtual arena that took me 9 months to accept. It measures the one thing my talent cannot help with. In there, I am one guy with a knife and average reflexes, and no amount of clones changes a single frame of it. Every other list, I can cheat. That one just sits there and tells the truth about me, monthly, in public. The War God Tower was better. 18 floors. Each floor has a shield across the stairwell, and each shield takes a specific force to crack. Floor 1, 500 kilograms. Floor 2, 1,000. It doubles and doubles. Most freshmen stall out at floor 3. A few of the monsters get to 4. I went up to floor 4, checked that the stairwell behind me was empty, quietly fused 10 clones, and hit the shield. It cracked, and I stepped through into floor 5 completely alone, which is exactly how I wanted it, because 5 needed 2,000 kilograms, and I could not do 2,000 kilograms, and there was nobody up there to watch me fail too. I stood on the 5th floor of the War God Tower for a while, temporarily the strongest freshman in the school by measured punching power, doing nothing, waiting a believable amount of time, and then went back downstairs looking appropriately winded. Then came the Demon Lock Tower, and the Demon Lock Tower is where C University stops being subtle. I knew something was wrong before I went in because of the state of the people coming out, soaked through, hair plastered to their heads, several of them audibly gagging. One girl came out, sat down on the steps, and put her face in her hands. Floor 1. A lion-dog beast, about the size of a car. Level 2. I put my fist through its skull. The head came apart like a dropped watermelon, and I got the entire contents of it directly in the face. I need you to understand about Yao beast blood. It is not like our blood. It is thick, it is warm, and it smells like a fish market that has been on fire and then rained on. I stood there in the middle of a stone room with it running down inside my collar, and I said out loud to nobody, "Holy crap, this smells awful," which is the most restrained thing I have ever said in my life. Floor 2 was fine. Floor 3 had a flesh ball on it. That's the only word for it. About waist high, white, round, no visible face, and it made a small chirping noise when it saw me, and I had roughly 1 full second of thinking, oh, that one's kinda cute. Then it spat. I got approximately 1.5 liters of pungent green liquid across my entire front. Instantly, comprehensively green. It went in my mouth. I want to say that again. It went in my mouth. I threw up my breakfast on the floor of the Demon Lock Tower, and then I killed it, in that order, and I would like the record to reflect that I killed it with feeling, and crouched there over the mess, dripping and green and furious. I finally got the joke. Fang Yu had quit this tower on floor 2. Half the class was refusing to go past 3. Everyone assumed the tower was ranked by difficulty, and the beasts on the low floors were just weak and gross. They weren't. They were a filter. Out in the war zone, the thing coming over the wall at you does not get vetted for aesthetics. Nobody asks it to be a dignified opponent. It will be foul, and it will be humiliating, and you will still have to put your hands inside it, and C University would very much like to find out now, for free, in a stone room, with a doctor on standby, which of its students flinch. I went back to floor 3 and kept climbing. Floor 4, 5, 6, level 3s. Nothing I couldn't handle with 10 clones merged and a bad attitude. Floor 7 set off a siren. An actual alarm, mounted in the ceiling, going off the moment I stepped onto the floor, which I later learned exists to warn the staff that a student is about to attempt something above their grade so they can start running. A level 4 Yao beast, around 1,500 kilograms of force. I was at 1,200 fused, and it was faster than me, and it had 4 more limbs than me, so I did not fight it. I played it. I have spent an unreasonable amount of my life on video games, and I would like to formally thank every hour of it. What I did for the next 2 hours on floor 7 is a technique any 12-year-old could describe. Get its attention, back off, make it commit, punish the recovery, never ever be where it thinks you are. 2 hours. I hit that thing about 400 times, and each hit did almost nothing, and I did not take a single serious one in return. And when it finally went down, my arms were shaking so badly I had to sit on it. Nobody else in the entire freshman class had gone past floor 5. I came out of that tower covered in 3 different colors of fluid. There was a small crowd at the exit. At the front of it was a tall guy with an extremely good haircut, looking at me the way you look at a piece of equipment that has just done something unexpected. That was the first time Han Yu ever bothered to learn my name. Then Feng Jian gave us the speech. Feng Jian is our year's boys teacher, senior war general, square, gray at the temples, permanently one bad answer away from a stroke. I've had reports, he said, that some of you refused to continue in the Demon Lock Tower because the beasts were unpleasant. Silence. Let me tell you a story. There are martial artists alive today who survived being hunted by hiding inside a pile of Yao beast excrement for 11 hours. He let that land. Could you do that? Somebody in the back made a small noise. I don't ask because I want you to. I ask because I do not want you to be eaten by a Yao beast one day and excreted like feces the next. I would rather you be the one in the pile than the one in the beast. Dismissed. I have never heard 1,500 people be that quiet. Then they gave out the keys. 4 dorm buildings, A through D, and the number after the letter is your rank. A1 is first place among boys in the Demon Lock Tower, B1 is first place in the girls list, and so on. They called my name first for A1, Fang Yu got B1, Guo Yan took C1, and I got my first proper look at her. Small, quiet, moves like she's underwater and everyone else is on land. She was first in the virtual arena. She was also first on the combined points list overall because she topped the arena and placed well everywhere else. I was 227th on combined points. My Demon Lock first place got dragged into a ditch by my virtual arena 517th. And then the interesting thing happened. They offered D1, first place tier dorm, effectively a gift to Han Yu because he was the S-rank talent and the school wanted him happy. He said no, not rudely. He just stood up and said, "Thank you. I'd rather take the first place key myself next month," and sat back down. I disliked that man for 2 solid years. That was a genuinely excellent moment, and I respected it at the time. My monthly credits came to 156,000. Guo Yan's came to around 300,000. A1 turned out not to be a dorm room at all. It's a villa on campus. 500 square meters of yard, 1,000 square meter basement, 1,000 square meters of private soundproof underground space given to me by the school for free. Do you know how hard it is to find somewhere to put 121 people? And there was one more perk attached to first place that they don't advertise. Feng Jin himself personally, on a call, 9 to 10 every night, private coaching from a senior war general. For the first 3 weeks it was the best hour of my day. Then we got to the martial body. There are 4, he said on the screen in my enormous empty basement. Black Tortoise doubles your punching power, White Tiger doubles your speed, Vermilion Bird gives you flame attacks, and more importantly, primes you to comprehend flame intent later. Azure Dragon raises your cultivation talent by 1 full rank, permanently. How many can I do? Physically, all 4. Financially, the school funds 1. Minor achievement costs 10,000 credits in materials. Major achievement, 100,000. Perfection, 500,000. He looked at me over his glasses. Nobody does more than 2, most do 1. Then he ran my compatibility test, which measures how well each body suits your constitution, on a scale where higher is worse. White Tiger, level 3. Vermilion. Bird 2. Azure Dragon, 2. Black Tortoise, level 1. Black Tortoise, perfect compatibility. Of course, the one that multiplies raw force. The universe has a sense of humor and it is not a subtle one. There was also a small logistical problem, which is that each martial body requires you to first master a guiding technique, and each guiding technique takes 3 days of focused practice, and I wanted all 4. 12 days. Or, alternatively, 4 clones, 4 techniques, simultaneously, 3 days. I sat in my basement with 4 copies of myself, each learning a different discipline in different corners of the room, and I want to say something about what that's actually like, because people assume clones are like having employees. They're not. There's one soul. When 4 of me are learning 4 things, I am learning 4 things at once, and it feels exactly like it sounds, like a headache with a shape. When they finished and the knowledge settled, it settled into me, all of it. 3 days. Somewhere in there, I also bought a Saint-grade body tempering pill from the school store for 1,000 credits, because at C University, the thing that cost 1,000,000 yuan in Lu City is a vending machine item. It pushed me over 700 kilograms. Advanced Apprentice. A small realm. Breakthrough. Clone quantity increased by 10. 21. Base 702 kilograms. Fusion of 21 clones. 2,170. I stood alone in a basement the size of a supermarket and laughed until I had to sit down on the floor. Upstairs, in a conference room I have never been in, the teaching staff of the freshman year held their first assessment meeting of the semester. Vice Principal Cheng Bo chaired it. Old man, thin, watery eyes, cardigan, looks like he should be feeding pigeons somewhere. Every teacher in that room deferred to him, and I could not for the life of me work out why. They went down the list. Han Yu, War God Potential, Consensus. Guo Yan, War God Potential, Consensus. Then somebody said my name and there was a pause. Demon Lock Tower first place, some strength. His virtual arena result was 517th. That alone tells you his comprehension is not high. A shrug I can picture perfectly without having been there. D-rank cultivation talent, a mutated clone. He'll go far on other people's resources and stop somewhere. Around Senior War General, nobody argued. Why would they? It was the correct read of every number they had. Cheng Bo wrote something down and moved on. I don't blame them even slightly. I built that assessment myself, on purpose, out of real data, over 2 years. It was the best work I had ever done. It was also about to become extremely inconvenient. I found Fang Yu in the cafeteria the next day, already 3 bites into somebody else's lunch, and she told me she'd picked Vermilion Bird. You didn't run the compatibility test? I did not. Fang Yu, your talent doubles your power. Black Tortoise doubles your power. That's 4 times. You'd be first in the War God Tower next month, and you'd stay there. She put her chopsticks down and looked at me with a patience I did not enjoy. Do you know how many senior war generals there are in Great Xia? No. Millions. She let that sit. And how many war gods? 300? About that. 1 in 10,000. And the gap between those two numbers is not power. It is not training. It is not resources. She picked her chopsticks back up. It's concept. To become a war god, you have to comprehend a concept, and either you can or you can't, and almost nobody can. Sister Shu is a senior war general. She's at perfect level in her fists. She has been trying to grasp a concept for 11 years, and she has not moved 1 inch. Shu Qi. The woman who gave a poor kid a million-yuan pill like it was a mint. 11 years, stuck. Vermilion Bird at perfection preloads flame intent, Fang Yu said. It doesn't guarantee anything. It just makes the door slightly less locked. That's worth more to me than being strong. That takes 3 years. About 3, yes. You'd stay a quasi-warrior for 3 years. You'd be last in every ranking in this school. Last place is last place, she said, and shrugged, and ate more of somebody else's lunch. In 3 years, nobody will remember. In 30, one of us is a war god, and the rest are senior war generals with a very nice retirement. I have thought about that conversation approximately 600 times since. At the time, I nodded and privately filed her under sentimental. The reason I mention it is what happened that same evening on my 9 o'clock call. Black Tortoise, Feng Jian said. Level 1 compatibility, that's the free one. Sign here. I want Black Tortoise and Vermilion Bird. You cannot afford 2. I'll fund the second one myself. He took his glasses off, which is never good. Wu Tian, listen to me carefully. Your cultivation talent is D. Your absolute priority is reaching formal martial artist as fast as physically possible, because every year you spend as an apprentice is a year of your window closing. Black Tortoise gets you there. Vermilion Bird is for people chasing flame intent, and flame intent is for people who might one day become war gods. He stopped. Restarted, gentler. I am not trying to insult you. I understand. Then take Black Tortoise, take Azure Dragon second if you must. At least that raises your talent, and stop. Vermilion Bird. And that's when he went off. How can you possibly be this stubborn? I am a senior war general. I have taught for 19 years. I consulted a war god, an actual war god, about your specific case, personally, on my own time, because your file is the worst matched file in this year and I wanted to get it right. Do you genuinely believe that the entire teaching staff of this university has conspired to hold back a first year with a D-rank talent? And here's the thing. He was right. Every word of it was right, given what he knew. His advice was correct, it was generous, it was expensive to him, and it was based on the completely false picture of me that I had spent 2 years carefully building and would go on defending. I could have fixed it in 1 sentence. Teacher, I have 21 bodies and I get 100 more every large realm and I am going to be a war god, so buy the flame intent one. And then that sentence exists. Then it's in a file. Then it's in a lab. I have never in my life wanted to say something as badly as I wanted to say that, and I sat there in a 1,000 square meter basement with my mouth shut. The silence went on long enough that he answered it for both of us. Fine. Since you believe your teacher's guidance is worthless, practice on your own from now on. And he hung up. Zhou Hui, the girl's teacher, all softness on the outside and completely immovable underneath, called him about it later. I know because she told me, years afterward. You are the teacher, she said. You do not get to fight with your students. I do not have time to argue with a child about his own future. Then don't argue, just be there when he's wrong. He gave the hour to Han Yu instead, which, honestly, made sense. Han Yu had a real deadline. The War God Hall only takes you if you're a war general at perfect level before you turn 20, and he was 17, and every minute of a senior war general's attention was worth more to him than to me, so I lost my teacher in the first month over an argument I couldn't have. I'd like to say it hurt. It did, a bit. Mostly it freed up an hour. Black Tortoise is supposed to take about a week to reach minor achievement. It took me under 10 hours because 21 of me were cultivating it at once, and my power went from 908 to 1,185 in a single night. Major achievement is supposed to take a month. It took me under 2 days, 1,500. By the end of September, I had Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon both at minor achievement as well, which is not a thing a person does, and my credit balance was down to 26,000, which is what happens when you decide to personally fund 3 secret martial bodies on a student stipend. October 1st, Rankings Day. Demon Lock Tower. I went to floor 8, which contains a peak level 4 Yao Beast rated at 4,000 kilograms. 21 clones fused puts me at 4,600. It was not a clean fight. It was 90 minutes, and I finished it lying on my back with the thing's jaw in both hands, but it went down, and I came out first. War God Tower, 3,000 kilograms. First. Virtual Arena, 633rd, down 260 places, because everyone else had been practicing reflexes and I had been in a basement. 202,000 credits. Feng Jian was waiting outside my dorm when I got back. He looked at me for a second, and I honestly thought, for one stupid warm moment, that he'd come to say something. Cherish this, he said. It's the last reward you'll get, and walked off. He wasn't being cruel, he was doing arithmetic. Han Yu had just broken through and gained 3,000 kilograms in a single step. Guo Yan had gained 2,000. 1,500 is what a genius manages. I'd gained a few hundred through methods he thought he understood, and any teacher in the world looking at those 3 lines would tell you that the boy at the top was about to be flattened. He was completely correct, and it was worse than he thought, and I let it happen on purpose. The dinner was the first sign. I'd given Fang Yu my B1 key so she wouldn't have to move buildings when her ranking slipped. She was going to spend 3 years at the bottom of every list on purpose, and she was extremely relaxed about it. So the 2 of us plus the Chen twins went out, and she brought Guo Yan, who said approximately 9 words all evening and looked at me over her rice for most of them. You know she considers you a thorn in her side, Fang Yu said afterward, entirely delighted. What did I do? You exist above her on a list. She's first on combined points. I'm 227th. You're first in Demon Lock and first in the Tower, which are the 2 she wants. Fang Yu grinned at me with all her teeth. She's been told her whole life she's the most gifted person in any room. Then some clone guy from Lu City with a D-rank talent parks himself in front of her. It's very healthy for her. Guo Yan's 9 words, incidentally, were these. Wu Tian, next month you're going to lose first place in the War God Tower. And she wasn't threatening me. She was telling me about Han Yu. She was almost sympathetic about it. She was also right. November came and I dropped to 7th in the War God Tower and 10th in Demon Lock and 60,000 credits. December. I fell off the top 1,000 on all 4 lists and collected the floor rate of 2,000 credits, which is the amount they give you for existing. By February, I was a joke. I want to describe this properly because it's the single most useful thing that happened to me at that school. When you're a genius, everyone around you is a good person. People hold doors. People laugh at what you say. People you have never met know your name and are delighted to meet you. When you become a loser, everyone around you is a bad person. It isn't that they turn on you. It's simpler and colder than that. They stopped putting in the effort of being pleasant because being pleasant to you was an investment and the investment stopped paying. Conversations end faster. Nobody saves you a seat. The Chen twins stayed and Fang Yu stayed, and I found out exactly who my friends were in about 11 weeks, which is information most people pay a great deal more for. And then, in February, Han Yu came to take my house. He'd topped the Demon Lock list. A 1 was his by the rules, and the rules are the rules, and he could have sent a message. He came in person, with people. This is my dorm now, he said, standing in my doorway. So get out. I looked at him for a second. Behind him, someone laughed. You know what's funny, I said, picking up a box. For 4 months, you drank my bathwater. You finished second in a tower I was standing on top of, and you called that a good month. In the end, that's the whole story of you. You're just a guy who got to drink my foot bath water. At least I'm better than you now. At least, I agreed. I was better than you once. And I walked out with a box under my arm, past about 30 people who had come specifically to watch, and I want to tell you exactly what I was thinking as I did it, because it was not dignified and it was not philosophical. I was thinking December 7th, because on December 7th, right when my rankings hit the floor, right when the whole school decided I was finished, I took the Black Tortoise martial body to perfection. My base punching power went to 1,811 kilograms. Fused with 21 clones, I was at 5,589. I was a quasi-warrior with the striking power of an intermediate warrior. There were maybe 6 people in the freshman year who could have survived 1 clean hit from me, and every single one of them thought I was washed up. I remember standing in that basement looking at the number and thinking, very clearly, we absolutely cannot let anyone see this. So I dropped. On purpose. Every list, every month, all the way to the bottom, and I banked the humiliation like it was a currency, because it is one. Then I borrowed 60,000 credits from Fang Yu. 500,000 is the price of Vermilion Bird at perfection, and I was short, and she transferred it without asking me a single question, which is a thing I have never forgotten. March 13th. Vermilion Bird. Perfection. And now I was ready to stop being a quasi-warrior. Becoming a formal martial artist is the biggest wall in the whole ladder, and it's not about strength. You have to perceive heaven and earth spiritual chi, the stuff that's been leaking into this world for 1,000 years and made all of this possible, and pull it into yourself and spin it into a vortex of origin chi in your core. Some people take a year to feel it, some never do. That's what a D-rank talent means. Your senses are bad, so the feeling comes slowly if it comes at all. I downloaded the standard technique for it, and I sat down in my basement with 120 of me, and every single one of us tried to feel the same thing at the same time. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. Day 3, one of me felt something, barely, like a draft in a sealed room, and the moment one of me felt it, all of me knew what it felt like. That's the part I don't think anybody has ever fully appreciated about my talent, including me at the time. A D-rank talent means each attempt is unlikely to succeed. It says nothing at all about how many attempts you can run in parallel. The vortex formed that night, and it hurt in a way I don't have vocabulary for, and I woke up on the floor 11 hours later covered head to foot in black filth that used to be inside my body. And in my head, breakthrough realm. Clone quantity increased by 100. A large realm, not 10. 121 of me. My base power jumped 2,000 kilograms to 3,812, and 121 clones at 10% each is 1,210%, which means fused I could hit for 49,888 kilograms. 50,000 is the ceiling of Advanced Warrior, the last rung before War General. I had been a first-year student in the bottom 1,000 of every list 11 weeks earlier. I sat on the floor of my basement, filthy, at 4 in the morning and did not tell one single human being. Then I went to the library because a martial artist without a weapon is a man who brought his hands to a knife fight. Zhou Hui found me in the weapons stacks. She's the only teacher at that school who ever asked me what I wanted before telling me what I should want. The spear is the king of weapons, she said. Longest reach, most technique, highest ceiling. It also demands the most comprehension. Out of 1,500 freshmen, exactly one chose it. Guoyan. Guoyan. She pulled another manual off the shelf. There's an old saying about how long each takes. A month for a sword, a year for a staff, 10 years for a spear, a lifetime for a gun. She handed it to me. And the knife is the one you can be dangerous with by Thursday. Then I'll take the knife. You didn't think about that. I've got 9 weeks. She showed me the top manuals anyway, because she is a teacher, and teachers cannot help themselves. The best thing on that shelf was double S rank. It's called Reincarnation, and the entry requirement, printed on the first page in the flattest possible language, is that you must comprehend life and death, not study them, comprehend them, the way you comprehend a concept, as a working principle you can hold in your hands. I read that page for about 11 seconds and then put the manual back very carefully, the way you hand somebody their baby. One student has ever taken it out of this library, Zhou Hui said. Did they get anywhere? He's third in the world. She slid it back into place. He was also already the most gifted human being alive when he opened it. I'm showing it to you so you know what the top of the shelf looks like, not because I think you should be reaching for it, which was, at the time, entirely correct and which I have thought about every single year since. The one I took was S rank. Overlord Blade, low comprehension requirement, requires a mystic iron battle blade, which is to say a slab of metal so heavy that most people cannot pick it up. Wins by raw force applied stupidly hard. Every technique in that library was better than Overlord Blade for a person with a brain. None of them were better for a person with 121 bodies and the striking power of an artillery piece. The school issues you a free D1 grade blade, which weighs 1,000 kilograms, and when I first took it off the rack, it nearly took my shoulder with it. But before the blade, the bones. Bone tempering is the actual grind of being a martial artist. 206 bones in the human body, and each one has to be soaked in origin chi until it densifies, and each one adds power. 30 kilograms for a limb bone, 100 for a torso bone, and 1,000 for a skull plate. Here's the problem. If you push in too little origin chi, you waste hours. If you push in too much, the bone fails, and a martial artist with a failed bone is a martial artist who spends 6 months in a hospital and comes out weaker than he went in. So everyone creeps. Everyone in that school tempered their bones at maybe 60% of the theoretical maximum rate because the downside of a mistake is catastrophic, and there is no way to find the limit except by crossing it. There is one way to find the limit by crossing it. I sent a clone into the basement and I found the exact failure point of every bone in the human body, one at a time, in a single afternoon. It's not pleasant. It would be very easy to make that sound clever. There is no pain transfer between me and a clone, so I felt nothing at all, and that's the part that got to me. I stood there taking notes while something with my face went through the worst experience available to a human being, over and over, without making a sound, because I wasn't driving it. By the end of it, there wasn't a clone left to work with. I made a new one in 3 days. That's the deal. What I had at the end of that afternoon was a table of numbers, and the numbers meant I could temper every bone at 100% of maximum from the first attempt. 10 hours per bone, 2 bones a day, where the best students in the school were managing one, and the blade. 1 hour of practice a day. 1 hour times 121 bodies is 121 hours. Every time I swung that knife once, I had swung it 120 times. March 31st, which was 19 days after I picked the thing up, I mastered the first level of Overlord Blade, which doubles the power of every strike, and broke through to micro level in the process. Micro level. The realm one single person in the entire freshman year had reached, and she'd needed a decade of pure natural comprehension to do it. I got there in 19 days by doing the most boring possible thing 121 times at once. I love my talent. I want that on the record. Meanwhile, across campus, the school was doing everything in its power to make Han Yu unbeatable. Feng Jin told him he could borrow up to 10 million credits against his future, because that's what an S-rank talent is worth on credit. Guo Yan unveiled the first level of her spear technique and put up 16,700 kilograms, and on the 1st of April I came back. I'd tempered 24 bones, 4,520 kilograms base. The Demon Lock Tower goes up in difficulty forever. It doesn't stop where the students do. Nobody in the freshman year had ever gone past floor 9. I did floor 9, then floor 10, then 11. Then I stood in front of the door to floor 12, which contains a peak level 6 Yao beast rated somewhere between 30 and 40,000 kilograms, and which is a thing that war generals hunt in teams. I opened it. In the monitoring office, Feng Jian was doing paperwork with one eye on the live rank board, the way you do. He told me later what that looked like from his side. The list twitched. Somebody at the bottom moved to 7th, then to 5th, then to 2nd. He put his pen down. Then the name went to 1st, past Han Yu, and the floor counter beside it said 12. Feng Jian said out loud to an empty office, "He actually made it past the 12th floor?" Then he pulled the footage and watched a student he had written off in October use the first level of a blade technique he'd picked up 19 days earlier to kill a beast that outweighed him 9-1. He watched it 3 times. He said afterward that the thing that unsettled him wasn't the beast. It was that at some point during the replay, he realized he was watching a stranger. I wasn't finished. War, God Tower, 18,000 kilograms. First. Guo Yan had 16, and then the virtual arena, the one list I have never been able to cheat, the one that has told the truth about me every month since September. I took first place in it, not because I got better. Let me be precise, because this is the funniest thing that happened to me that year. Guo Yan spent her arena session practicing her spear form on the wolves instead of killing them efficiently because she considered the arena a training tool rather than a test, and she scored below her ability. I won the virtual arena by 4 points because the best person in it wasn't trying. 4 lists. All 4. First on every single one. Nobody had swept all 4 lists at C University in 10 years. The payout was 400,000 credits for the 4 firsts, plus a 1 million credit unprecedented achievement bonus that the finance office apparently had to look up how to issue. 1.4 million credits, 14 billion yuan in 1 month at 17. And I went and got my house back. He was decent about it, actually. He'd packed before I got there. "Hurry up," I said in the doorway, in exactly the tone he'd used on me. "I need to get cleaners in. Who knows what kind of handiwork you got up to in there? Petty? Yes. Worth it? Absolutely. I'd do it again tomorrow." The teachers held their second assessment meeting of the year that week. Chungbo opened it by putting the demon lock footage on the screen and letting all 9 minutes of it run without saying anything, which is a genuinely vicious way to start a meeting. In October, somebody said eventually, we recorded a ceiling of Senior War General. In October, he was 517th in the virtual arena. We used that number specifically. It was the strongest single piece of evidence in the file. He is now first in the virtual arena. Silence. "Read the February file to me," Chungbo said. Somebody read the February file. Out of the top 1,000 on all 4 lists, minimum stipend, a recommendation in writing that resources be reallocated. Then he asked the room to explain how a student goes from that to a 4-list sweep in 8 weeks, and the room could not, so the room did what rooms do, which is build an explanation out of the nearest available material. The consensus of the finest martial minds at C University was that my clone talent had mutated a second time on breaking through to martial artist. I did not plant that. I planted a great many things over 4 years, and this was not one of them. They built it themselves out of nothing in about 4 minutes and then wrote it into my permanent file where it protected me for the next 3 years. There is no lie as durable as one somebody else came up with. With comprehension like that, said someone at the back, he might have a real chance at War God. Then Teacher Wu, who runs incentives, proposed a reward ladder to keep me climbing. Second level of Overlord Blade, 1 million credits. Third level, 2 million. Doubling from there. And then, at the bottom of the sheet, the big one. Perfect level before the age of 20. 10 million credits. I read that line the next morning and thought very sincerely, thank you. I spent the money the same week, because money that isn't in your body isn't yours. First I paid Fang Yu back her 60,000 and she took it and said nothing, and that was the whole transaction. Then, a 9-leaf Ganoderma at 1 million credits, which doubles your bone tempering speed for 1 month, 30 kilograms of dragon meat, 30 bone tempering pills. 1.33 million credits, gone in an afternoon. That was the dinner where I finally got the War God Hall explained to me properly. There are 3 great powers on this planet. Great Xia, the International Chamber of Commerce, the Mercenary Alliance, and sitting above all 3 of them is the War God Hall, which takes the best young martial artists on Earth regardless of nationality, and which nobody argues with. To get in, you must be a war general, at perfect level, before you turn 20. Guo Yan said it out loud at that table like it was a weather forecast. She was going. Han Yu was going. Everyone at that table knew those 2 were going. Nobody looked at me when they said it. That wasn't cruelty. It was March. I'd been a joke in March. And then 3 separate war gods sent me private messages in the same fortnight. Not offers. Instruction. Each of them recorded themselves running Overlord Blade forms at length, personally, and sent it to a first-year student with no obligation attached, which is the martial world's way of applying for a job. That is what a monthly ranking sweep does. 6 weeks earlier, I had been a punchline in a corridor. The first was very senior and very formal and wanted a disciple who would represent his lineage. The second wanted to attach himself to whatever I turned out to be and was honest enough about it that I nearly said yes out of respect. I picked Shu Gang, Advanced War God, Overlord Blade at the 7th level, which was 4 levels past anything I had ever seen a human being do. His recording was 11 minutes long, and it contained 1 correction to my grip that I have used every day since. His talent is flight. I asked him about it the first time we spoke properly, because it makes no sense. War gods cannot fly. That's the flat rule of this world. It is how you tell that something has gone past War God, and everyone on Earth knows it, except his talent just does. It isn't power. It isn't a concept. It's a coin that came up strange at an awakening ceremony when he was 6 years old, and he has spent 40 years being a walking exception to a law of nature that nobody can explain and being asked about it by every single person he meets. Does it bother you? It bothered me at 12, he said. Now I use it to get to work. I liked him immediately. Anybody whose entire career rests on the universe making a clerical error is a friend of mine. By April 22nd, I'd finished all 126 limb bones, 7,580 kilograms, intermediate warrior, 131 clones, and then I made a decision that everybody would have told me was insane, which is why I didn't ask anybody. You're supposed to do the skull last. Every manual says so. The skull plates are worth 1,000 kilograms each, 10 times a torso bone, and they are also the part of you that, if you get the origin chi load wrong, ends the conversation permanently. So the standard approach is, temper everything else, get strong, get experienced, and come back for the head when you know what you're doing. I did the skull second, 10 plates, 10 clones per plate, pushed past the limit one after another, until I had 10 numbers written down and no clones left standing anywhere on the property. 100 of them, gone in an afternoon. 3 days to regrow the lot. 3 days is nothing. 3 days is a weekend. Other people find the limit of their own skull by hitting it. I find it by hitting 100 copies of it and then reading my notes. I have never once felt guilty about this, and I'm not going to start now. May 1st, Han Yu stood in front of the War God Tower and told anyone who'd listen that his base was 20,000 kilograms, and with the first level of Thunder 9 transformations that doubled to 40,000 kilograms. Genuinely spectacular for a first year. I went up after him and put down 40,100. I could have done a great deal more than that. I chose 100 kilograms because 100 kilograms is the most insulting margin available. 100 kilograms says I didn't need to try. 100 kilograms is not a victory, it's a comment. And I did it deliberately, out loud, in public, for a reason I'm not proud of but will absolutely defend. I wanted the school to keep pouring resources into him. I wanted him funded, escalated, and permanently one step behind because a rival the school is desperately investing in is a rival who has to keep showing me everything he's got. Then the announcement came down and took the air out of the whole courtyard. The final freshman examination, July 1st, would not be held on campus. It would be held in the Pudong War Zone. Live combat, 3 days, 1,500 students dropped individually into the largest active beast territory on the eastern seaboard, the meat grinder. I have heard that phrase my entire life. My high school drill instructor came out of that place with one eye. The saying about it goes, of 100 soldiers who go in, it's considered lucky if one comes out. The courtyard did not take it well. There was shouting. Several people said what everyone was thinking, which was that this was a school, not a draft. Feng Jian let it run for about 90 seconds, then he cut through all of it. You are, every one of you, exceptionally talented. You were told that at your awakening ceremonies. You have been told it every year since. The country has spent more on this room than it spends on entire divisions. His voice went up and did not come back down. And now you are being sent to a battlefield and you are shrinking back. Why should the soldiers on that wall go without hesitation? On what grounds? Tell me on what grounds they go and you do not. Nobody said anything because there is no answer to that. And standing in the back of that courtyard, I thought about the one time I'd asked Gao Ming why he volunteered for the meat grinder at 19 when he had a talent good enough to sit out the war in a comfortable garrison job. He'd said, someone has to go to the meat grinder. Why can't it be me? I have never come up with anything better than that. Nobody has. I prepared like a paranoiac. 3 bloodberries and 30 pills, 330,000 credits. 8 skull plates tempered, which put my base at 27,000 kilograms, and with 141 clones fused, I could deliver 407,000. 400,000 kilograms is senior war general territory. I was a second semester freshman. I tested it once on the school's heavy device and heard something inside the machine make a noise it was not designed to make and stopped. A D9 grade blade, 9,000 kilograms, because the D1 had become a toy, and then I tried to buy a nuclear bomb. They're on the military procurement network. Tactical yield, 300 million yuan, 30,000 credits, which at that point was pocket change. I filled in the form. I filled in every field on that form correctly, which in hindsight is the detail that upset people the most. My screen lit up 11 minutes later with a video call from Feng Jian, and I have never seen a man that color. Cancel that order. Cancel it right now. Nuclear weapons are strategic materials. They are not. You cannot. This is going to be on my desk for a year. It went through the store page. It is on the store page for army groups. He put both hands flat on his desk. What is wrong with you? You're a student. You're going into a war zone with a class of 1,000. What in the world were you planning to do with a nuclear device? Not die in the meat grinder. You. He stopped, rubbed his face. You really are a coward. Teacher Zuo, I said, that's the meat grinder. My drill instructor in high school retired out of there. He came back with one eye and he was one of the lucky ones. You're telling 1,500 teenagers to go in for 3 days and you're calling me a coward for wanting a bigger stick? He didn't have an answer for that either, but he canceled the order. Insertion day. They gave us backpacks with 3 days of food and a rundown of the reward structure, and that's where the whole thing suddenly made a lot more sense. C University would buy back Yao Beast inner cores at 100 times market price. A level 7 core sells for 10 million yuan. The school was offering 100,000 credits each. That's not an exam. That's a bounty program with a grade attached. Zhou Hui gave us survival advice, gently, the way you'd explain a recipe. If you are being hunted and there is no way out, dig a hole. Cover it with a layer of Yao Beast feces. The scent will hide you completely. Feng Jian from the side without looking up. The best thing is to smear it over your whole body. Somebody threw up preemptively. And then we saw the wall. I'd seen it from the airport in the distance, which does not prepare you. The steel Great Wall goes up into the clouds. Not figuratively. You cannot see the top of it from the base. There are tank emplacements on it. There are missile batteries and rocket arrays and gun positions stacked in tiers like a city built vertically, and every one of them is pointed east, permanently, forever. That wall is the entire reason there is a country behind it. General Fang met us at the top and explained the insertion plan, which was 1 helicopter per student. 1 helicopter per student. 1,500 sorties. Why not group drops? Somebody asked. Because a group drop is 1 crash, he said, and I would prefer to lose one of you at a time. They put me down in the canopy of an enormous tree about 40 kilometers past the wall, and the rope was still swinging when I noticed that the tree was already occupied. A level 5 python coiled in the branches directly above me, watching with the patient look of something that has just had lunch delivered. I killed it in 4 seconds and took the core out and was moving inside a minute because the noise of that fight would bring everything within a kilometer. Welcome to the exam. The first thing I did was send a clone out ahead of me, not as a fighter, as a scout. 200 meters forward, eyes open, feeding me everything it saw, and if something ate it, I'd know exactly where not to walk, and it would cost me 3 days of one body I had 140 spares of. Every student in that forest was moving blind. I was moving with a drone. The second thing I did was set a floor. Level 4 Yao beasts are worth about 100,000 yuan. They're also what most of my classmates were going to spend 3 days carefully not dying to. I walked past them. I walked past level 5s. I was hunting level 7s. A level 7 Yao beast has roughly the strength of a first level battle general. It is the kind of thing that gets a squad commendation when a squad kills one. They were worth 100,000 credits each. I killed 3 blood-haired lion mastiffs in the first minute of finding them. Then I stood in the quiet afterward doing the arithmetic and had to physically stop myself from laughing. I was standing in a forest my entire country considers a death sentence, and it looked to me like a shop. Day 1 total, 5 level 6 cores and 17 level 7 cores, 1.75 million credits, in a day, at 17. Back at the wall, in a monitoring room, Feng Jian and Zhou Hui and General Fang watched 1,500 red dots crawl around a map, and the number in the corner of the screen said 7. 7 students dead on day 1. They'd budgeted for far more than that. General Fang said so out loud, and then said the thing that nobody in the room could explain, which is that the entire northeastern quadrant had gone strangely quiet. At one point, he suggested assigning a war god to shadow me quietly, because the school's top student dying in an exam is the kind of headline nobody survives. Feng Jian said no. I need to say this next part carefully, because I spent 9 months thinking that man had written me off. That would be unfair to the other students, he said. In Great Xia, all lives are equal. If we protect one of them, we have decided the others are worth less. We do not do that. And General Fang, a general, said, understood, and dropped it. Night 2 is when I got greedy. I found a demon cloud tiger. Level 8. 1 million credits. It took me a long time. Long enough that my origin chi was draining and my arms were heavy and I should have been thinking about the noise, and when it finally went down, I stood over it feeling like the king of the entire eastern seaboard. Then the trees around me filled up with blood-haired lion mastiffs. Not 3. Dozens. That fight had been loud for a long time, and every level 7 predator within several kilometers had come to see what was dying, and now they'd arrived and found me nearly empty. I remember exactly what I thought. It wasn't heroic. It was, this is my own fault for being greedy. On the wall, the teachers were watching. Zhou Hui asked Feng Jian to break the rules once for this one student. He said no again, and he said it with his jaw locked, and he stayed in that chair. And in the middle of that pack, running on nothing, I did something out of pure exhaustion that changed my entire life. I dodged a lunge, and the mastiff behind me didn't stop in time, and the two of them hit each other. I stood there for a second in the gap that opened up and watched 2 apex predators untangle themselves from each other, and I had the single most humiliating thought of my career. Why have I been killing all of them? Because that's what I'd been doing. Every fight of my life had been me applying force to a target until the target stopped. It never once occurred to me that a battlefield with 30 things in it contains 30 sources of force that are not mine. So I stopped attacking. I started positioning, put a mastiff between me and the one that was about to jump. Step so that the lunge lands on its neighbor. Let the pack's own weight and speed and stupidity do the work, and only strike when the strike costs nothing. It stopped being a fight. It became something closer to standing in the middle of a river and deciding where the water went. I don't know how long that lasted. What I know is that somewhere in it, everything came apart and reassembled. Every hour of Overlord Blade, every one of those 121 parallel sessions, all of it. And I understood all at once that force is not something you produce. It's something already in the room that you either use or don't. Unity of heaven and man. Perfect level. The realm above micro. The realm Shuqi had been at for 11 years while she waited for a concept that never came. The realm that, according to the reward sheet on Teacher Wu's desk, was worth 10 million credits if reached before the age of 20. I was 17, and I got there in a forest at 4 in the morning while trying not to be eaten. When it was over, the mastiffs that could still run, ran. That's the part I think about. They didn't die. They left. Whatever was standing in that clearing had stopped reading as food to them. I slept 11 hours. Right there. I have never slept like that before or since. 3 days later, a helicopter picked me up. They did the weigh-in at the base of the wall, on trestle tables, with the whole class watching because C University never lets a ranking happen in private. Han Yu went first, because of course he did, 9 level 7 cores and a spread of smaller ones, 1.47 million credits, and he said the number like he was announcing a birth. It was a genuinely outstanding result. Nobody in the history of that exam had done much better. Guoyan, 1.22 million. Then they called my name, and I walked up to the table and turned my backpack over. The sound alone went on for a while. 5 level 4 cores, 12 level 5, 22 level 6, 143 level 7 cores, and 12 level 8. Nobody said anything at all. The proctor with the scanner counted them twice, and then checked his own arithmetic on a tablet, and then read it out in a voice that got quieter as it went. Wu Tian, 26,580,000 credits. Han Yu's face is the only reason I keep that memory in good condition. General Fang came down the line personally. Son, on the strength of that haul alone, I would put you forward for the rank of senior colonel. And Feng Jian stood there and did a sum nobody else in that room had done yet. 143 level 7 Yao beasts had been removed from one quadrant of the Pudong war zone. During the same 3 days, his class had posted the lowest casualty rate in the history of the examination. 7 dead, 7 out of 1,500 in the meat grinder. He looked at me for a long moment and did not say a word about it. Then or ever, my cover story for the perfect level breakthrough was ready before the helicopter landed. I comprehended the second level of Overlord Blade out there, which was true. I had, and it explains a jump in output. And it cost me nothing, and it says absolutely nothing about the fact that I had crossed the realm that separates a strong student from a candidate for the War God Hall. Chen Lei got there before anyone could think too hard about it. You ran into a whole herd of them, and you call that good luck? I call it a business opportunity. You, he said with feeling, are not a normal person. Here are the real numbers from that week, which I told no one. Base punching power, 55,180 kilograms. Fused with 141 clones, 830,000. With the second level of Overlord Blade on top of that, about 2.5 million kilograms. Elementary War God begins at 1 million. I was a first-year student who had never officially left the warrior realm, and if you handed me a blade and gave me 3 seconds to fuse, I could hit like a god of war. So I went shopping. 2 more 9-leaf Ganoderma, 20 bloodberries, an A1 grade Mystic Iron Battle Blade, 1 million credits, 10 billion yuan, and it weighs 50,000 kilograms. You do not carry that. It carries you, if you're unlucky. And the Black Dragon armor, 10 million credits, 100 billion yuan. Dragon scale layered over orca leather, the most expensive object I have ever touched, and I bought it with money I'd earned in 72 hours in a forest. That is not a normal thing for a 17-year-old to own. I want to flag that because everything that happens next happens partly because of what that armor makes people think about me. Goodbyes at the airport were cheerful. To Han Yu, I said, try to watch less of Fang Lei's live streams over the summer. Petty. Yes, it's a running theme. What I didn't know is what he did approximately 40 minutes after that. He called the International Chamber of Commerce. The chamber is the second of the 3 great powers, and it doesn't have a country, it has money, and one of the things money buys is early admission to the War God Hall for a family member. The price was a marriage, one of the Sterling daughters. He agreed on the phone, just like that, in an airport, at 17. His last message to me that summer was 4 words long, and I'll give him this. He actually delivered on it. When we meet again, I will be a god of war. Lu City Airport, VIP Arrivals Hall, and Gao Ming had brought my parents. He'd also, I found out later, spent 2 weeks bragging about me to anyone in Lu City who would hold still. There was another party in that hall. General Chen, collecting his son from Jiangnan University, plus Zheng Heng, who was Jiangnan's top freshman and apparently worth a general's personal appearance. I came off the plane in the Black Dragon armor with 2 mystic iron blades across my back. I did not do that to make a point. I did it because the A1 blade weighs 50,000 kilograms and there is no luggage service on this planet that will take it. I knew exactly what it looked like, and I did not adjust. General Chen recognized the armor from across the hall. You could watch it happen on his face. Dragon scale over orca leather has 1 manufacturer and 1 price, and there are perhaps 40 of them in the country. Then he looked at the blade and did the second calculation, and that one landed harder. Chen Hao didn't recognize any of it. He was mid-sentence about something when his father cut him off. Shut up. Then General Chen crossed the floor toward me, and I watched a man in his 40s who commands a regional garrison try to work out what to call a 17-year-old. He couldn't say nephew. That's what you call your subordinate's kid. He'd used it last year without thinking about it. Young Master Wu, he said. That's the entire arc of my first year. Right there, in 3 words in an airport. Meanwhile, Zhang Heng had quietly called a friend at C University to ask who the kid in the armor was, and I could hear his half of it. No, the one in the black. What do you mean, that's... Say that again? He hung up and looked at Chen Hao with something like pity. That's their number 1 from freshman year. He came out of the Pudong exam with more than a dozen level 8 cores. And more than 100 level 7s. Chen Hao didn't say anything. Then Gao Ming, who had been bouncing on his heels for 5 minutes, decided he wanted to hold my blade. Let an old man have a look at that thing. He got both hands on the grip. He set his feet. He put his back into it in a way that I want to describe respectfully, because this is a man who tempered his own bones over 8 years on a soldier's salary. It did not move, at all. He scanned it with his bracelet instead, and then made a sound I have heard exactly twice in my life. 10 billion yuan, 50,000 kilograms, holy crap. My sister leaned over and counted the zeros with her finger. Brother, Mei said, that's not a knife, that's a building. Zhang Heng said something on the way out about being a frog at the bottom of a well looking up at the sky, and I don't think he meant it about me. And Chen Hao, who had once told me a toad shouldn't dream of swan meat, stood in that hall and understood, finally and completely, that we were not in the same world and never had been. I got exactly 1 month of peace. I spent it in the basement of the villa I'd bought my family, with 2 9-leaf Ganoderma cutting my tempering time in half, a skull plate a day, 11 plates in 12 days, then the torso, 51 bones in 18 days, 206 bones, all of them, done. 55,180 kilograms, which is past the 50,000 ceiling of the advanced warrior realm, which means there was exactly one thing left to do. Becoming a war general means taking the vortex of origin chi in your core and compressing it into a solid Yuan Dan. That's it. That's the whole test. Squeeze the storm until it becomes a stone. And I had a problem, which is that my vortex was enormous. Everyone else's vortex is built by one person over 1 year. Mine had been fed by 141 people continuously since March. Compressing it with a single mind would have taken me something like a decade. So I put 141 of me around it and we squeezed from every direction at once. While I was doing that, on the other side of the world, my chosen master was having the worst week of his career because of me. Xu Gang had found out about the defection. Han Yu was C University's S-rank talent. Everything in him, the funding, the coaching hours, the borrowed credits, 4 years of a senior war general's private attention, had been paid for by a country, on the understanding that it was an investment. And he had signed all of it over to the International Chamber of Commerce in an airport for a marriage and a queue position. Xu Gang chased him across 3 time zones. He nearly caught him too, which is where it went wrong, because the chamber had sent an escort, and the escort was 2OG Sterling. 2 war gods fought in the sky over open country for 11 minutes. Nobody won. That's the part that matters. Nobody won, nobody died, and there was no strategic consequence whatsoever except one dance, which is that when beings at that level release that much power in the atmosphere, everything with an animal nervous system underneath them feels it and panics and moves. 2 men had a disagreement in the air, and it did not injure either of them. I found out about all of it afterward. At the time, I was unconscious on a basement floor with a new Yuan Dan and 241 clones, feeling extremely good about myself. Breakthrough realm. Clone quantity increased by 100, 241. Base power 70,180 kilograms. Fused 1,757,000. With the second level of Overlord Blade, over 5 million. Elementary War. God starts at 1 million. I sat up on that floor at 18 years old, well, 17 and a half, and I want that noted, with the striking power of a war god and the official rank of a first-year student, and I was still sitting there grinning when every siren in Lu City went off at once. The phone was already ringing. Feng Jian, and his voice was wrong. Han Yu has defected to the International Chamber of Commerce. Xu Gang pursued him. There was a fight, an advanced war god against a sterling in the air over a populated region. How bad? When war gods fight, the beasts feel it. A breath. Beast tide. The entire Jiangnan region, every city, including yours. I have never moved faster in my life than I did getting to that basement door. My father had already carried Mei down. I carried my mother's chair with her in it, and she held onto the armrests and did not make a sound, and I got the alloy door shut and sealed and stood there with my hand on it for 2 full seconds. Then my bracelet buzzed with a general conscription notice. All martial artists to the West City Wall. I don't want to make the run sound heroic. It was 11 minutes. I passed cars. Lu City's west wall is not the steel Great Wall. It's 20 meters of concrete and a few gun positions, because Lu City is an interior city, and the interior isn't supposed to need one. The sky east of it was black, not with cloud. Gao Ming was on that wall. So was General Chen. So was Chen Hao, 17 years old, with a blade he could barely lift and his father's hand on his shoulder. So was Zhang Heng. Every martial artist in a city of 4 million, standing on a wall, watching the horizon move. It came in like a tide because that's the correct word for it, not a charge, a rise. I killed things for 2 hours, and I am not going to pretend I remember the order. What I remember is people dying around me at a rate I could not do anything about. Martial artists I'd seen at the gym. A man about my father's age who'd been shouting encouragement at people 10 minutes earlier and then wasn't there. And I remember a demon cloud tiger, level 8, the same kind I'd needed a long, ugly fight to bring down in the Pudong forest, coming over the parapet 20 meters to my left, straight at Gao Ming. He got his blade up. He knew it wouldn't matter. I watched him decide to swing anyway. He told me afterward what he thought in that second. 3 words. Am I dying here? I took its head off before it landed. He stood there with his blade still raised, one eye enormous, looking from the corpse to me and back. Instructor, I said, I forgot to tell you. I've been promoted to war general. Gao Ming is not a man who cries. He didn't then. He told me, months later, that if he died on that wall right afterward, he would have had no complaints about anything. That's the warm part. Here's the rest of the night. In the command center under the wall, they'd been tracking something on the far scopes for 20 minutes and hoping it would turn. It didn't turn. An ironback armored ground dragon, elementary demon king. A demon king is the equivalent of a war god. Its backplating shrugs off conventional missiles. They'd fired 11 at it already, and it hadn't changed pace. The standard doctrine for an elementary demon king is a war god, or failing that, a tactical nuclear device. There was no war god available. Every war god in the Jiangnan region was standing on a different wall in front of a different city because the beast tide was regional and there are only 300 of them on Earth. Lu City had a garrison general named Wu, a wall, and 4 million people behind it. Then General Wu looked at the tactical feed and saw a 17-year-old take a level 8 Yao beast's head off in one stroke. He came and found me personally, carrying a case, and he did not waste time on introductions. Can you deliver this? I opened it. Tactical warhead. Kill radius 2 kilometers. 3 months earlier, I tried to buy one of these on a school procurement page and gotten shouted at by a senior war general for 11 minutes. I want it stated for the record that I was right. I'll send a clone. Your true body does not go. That's an order. Sir, my clone is… I am escorting the clone, General Wu said. That is also an order. And that's where I stopped arguing, because he wasn't posturing. There were 40 kilometers of open ground between the wall and that thing, and every meter of it was full. His talent is Vajra body. He goes gold. It multiplies his defense to a degree that stops being defense and starts being architecture. And for the next 20 minutes, I watched a man in his 50s walk through a beast tide like a lit match through a snowdrift. He killed a level 9 on the way. I want to say that plainly because it's the kind of thing that gets one line in a report. A level 9 Yao beast. He killed it because it was in the way. At 10,000 meters, he stopped. This is as far as I can hold. Go. My clone went on alone with the case, and here's the thing about that walk. The clone can hear everything I hear. It is me. It has my memory, my ambition, my mother's face, my whole 17 years, and it is walking toward the center of a beast tide with a nuclear device and no plan for afterward, and it knows exactly what it is. I've been asked whether that's hard. Everyone always asks it carefully, like it's an indelicate question. It's the least hard thing in my life. There's one soul, whichever one of us is standing at the end is me. The one holding the case understands that better than anyone alive, which is why it never once slowed down. And there's the part people are too polite to ask about. The warhead needed to be within 2 kilometers. The Demon King had noticed the small thing walking toward it and started to close. At 1,500 meters, I was still 500 short of the kill radius. That's when a dozen level 9s closed in around the clone at once. 500 meters short, so I detonated it there. There was a second sun over the eastern approach of Lu City for about 4 seconds. The shockwave crossed 40 kilometers of ground and hit the wall hard enough to knock people off their feet. 2 ridgelines came down. The beast tide, in that whole quadrant, simply stopped existing, and on the wall, for the first time in 3 hours, it went quiet. Then the dust column bent from the inside, and the ironback armored ground dragon walked out of it. Alive, moving, aimed at us. I have never heard a sound like the one that wall made. It wasn't screaming. It was the noise 4,000 people make when hope leaves the building. General Wu went at it anyway, gold and roaring, and it hit him without breaking stride, and he came down somewhere out in the dark and did not get up. Beside me, Gao Ming grabbed my arm. Wu Tian, you've got a future. You cannot die here. He was shoving me toward the stairs. It's time to go. Go. And I looked at him, and then past him, west, at the city. 4 million people, my street, my compound, the house with the ground floor bedroom and the basement with the alloy door and the 3 people inside it. Instructor, I said, go where? Anywhere. My hometown is right behind me. And I stepped off the wall. I want to give you the honest version of that fight because the version on the news is nonsense. The first thing I learned is that its tail is faster than it looks, and I only avoided it because I'd spent 2 hours on floor 7 of the Demon Lock Tower learning to read a thing's commitment before it commits. The second thing I learned is that my blade did not go through its head. 50,000 kilograms of mystic iron, 5 million kilograms of force behind it, and I put it into the top of that skull and got sparks and a shallow bright line and nothing else. Then it opened its mouth and the world went white and hot and I went backward about 200 meters and hit the ground and got up coughing. The only reason I got up at all is that I was wearing 100 billion yuan of dragon scale. I have never been so glad to have spent money. That happened 4 more times, and somewhere in there, on my hands and knees in the dirt, I realized something that made me laugh out loud in the middle of the worst night of my life. It was slow. Not slow like a big thing is slow. Slow like a thing that has been hurt. Its left side wasn't tracking. It was running at maybe 30%. I'd assumed the nuke had failed. The nuke hadn't failed. The nuke had taken 70% of an elementary demon king off the board, and it had walked out of the fireball anyway, because that is what an elementary demon king is. That's right, I said to it out loud, because I am not a dignified person. That was me. Not feeling great, are you? Then I fused every clone I had, and I stopped trying to cut through the armor plate, and I let everything I'd learned in that forest, that force is already in the room, that you don't produce it, you route it, come out of the end of that blade at once. 3rd level of Overlord Blade. I learned it in the middle of that fight, off a thing that was trying to kill me, which is exactly how I'd learned everything else that year. The blade went in. 3 things killed that demon king, and I've never once claimed otherwise. The nuke, which took 70%, the 3rd level, which I got mid-fight because I was about to die, and the armor, which is the only reason I was still standing to get it. Take away any one of them, and there's a crater where Luz City used to be. I stood there afterward in the dark with the wall 4 kilometers behind me, and I could not hear anything at all. Then Gao Ming's voice came over the wall speakers, and he had forgotten the microphone was live, and what 4,000 people heard was one old instructor saying, to nobody, am I about to raise a god of war, and one with a clone talent at that? The world found out by breakfast. 17-year-old university student slays Demon King. It ran everywhere. Fang Lei, the reporter who'd covered my entrance exam from the pavement outside my school, filed the segment personally, and I believe made a career out of it. Within 6 hours, an offer of a major general's commission from the army, a claim of jurisdiction from the Ministry of Education, 3 provincial governments inviting me to relocate, and 1 video call I only saw a transcript of, from a man in a white coat to a bureau I'd never heard of. I require this individual's blood and cellular material. Ideally, we would bring him in personally for a comprehensive study, and then, with the tone of a man reading a weather report, for the sake of humanity as a whole, individuals inevitably need to make certain sacrifices. I was on a plane to C University 90 minutes later. C University closed ranks around me, and I did not expect that. Shugong argued my case in the faculty meeting, a man who'd spent that same week getting into a fight with a sterling over a defector. This child values loyalty, he said, and note what he did on that wall. He had spent an entire year concealing his strength, and he threw the whole disguise away in one night for a city with no strategic value. If that is the kind of student we hand over on request, then tell me what we are. They put me on S-level treatment, which is the tier reserved for people the school genuinely believes will make War God, and they submitted my application to the War God Hall. The credits landed the same week, 3 million for the 3rd level of Overlord Blade, 10 million for reaching perfect level before 20. 10 million in war merit, including the Demon King's corpse, which the school bought outright. 34 million credits. I was rich enough to buy a small country, and I still wasn't strong enough to keep my family safe, and I found that out 11 days later. They came in helicopters, dozens of them, dropping onto the C University lawn in the middle of the afternoon. War gods. Something like 15 of them from 6 different institutions, and Shugang went up to meet them in the air because that's the only polite way to greet a delegation of people who could level the campus. They sat around a conference table and made their requests in order. Early graduation and immediate military commission, transfer of jurisdiction to the Ministry of Education. And then a man named Tian Hai said, in the tone of someone ordering a coffee, I'll need a quantity of Wu Tian's bone marrow. And a man named Fang Bing said his laboratory would require my full cooperation for a comprehensive examination, and could the school please arrange transport? Shugang asked whether they thought C University students were laboratory animals. Somebody said something about the greater good of the species. You make it sound very noble, Shugang said. Why don't you cut yourself open and study that? Cheng Bo, the vice principal, the old man in the cardigan who I still could not work out why everyone deferred to, refused to hand me over, flatly, and then, because he is a politician as well as whatever else he is, he offered them a compromise, blood and cells, a sample. And since a clone's tissue is identical to mine in every measurable way, a clone would provide it. They took the deal. I agreed on the spot without a flicker because it cost me nothing, and I was actually in a fairly good mood about it. Then my bracelet rang, and it was Gao Ming, and his voice was a thing I had never heard before. Wu Tian, your parents and your sister, they've been taken. I was holding a clone's arm at the time. It was already prepped for the sample. I closed my hand. That's all. There's no scene here. I closed my hand, and the clone was gone, and there was blood across a conference table with 15 of the strongest people on Earth sitting around it, and everyone in that room went very still. You want my cells? I said. Fine, take them. I'll cooperate. Bleed me out. I don't care. Nobody said anything. But why my family? I could hear my own voice doing something I didn't recognize. They can't fight. They've never hurt anyone. Is it just because I'm too weak? Is that the whole reason? Is that all it takes? Shugang started to say something, and I walked out. I ordered 6 dragon saliva vermilion fruits on the way to the door. 5 million credits each. 30 million credits. Nearly everything I had. There are 12 major meridians in the human body. Opening them is what makes a war general into a senior war general, and each one takes about 3 days of dangerous, careful work, and the fruit is what makes that possible at all. 6 fruits is 6 meridians. I needed 12. I got the other 6 because of Chengbo, who went back into that conference room after I left and came out with 50 million credits in what he described as compensation. I don't know what he said in there. I have never asked. 12 fruits, 12 meridians, 3 days each, standard. I did one every half hour because I had 241 bodies to divide the work between, and there was no version of that night where I stopped. Senior War General before morning. 261 clones. I went and hit the school's testing device on the way out, the heavy one, the one rated for war gods. It read 1,200,000 kilograms, and then it made a sound like a bank vault falling downstairs and stopped reading anything at all. That's the second measuring device I've destroyed. Somebody should have kept a list. Meanwhile, Bing Jian was standing in a lab collecting a box of what was left of my clone with his own hands because he refused to let a technician do it. He told me a year later it was the worst hour of his teaching career. He spent all of it thinking about a phone call he'd hung up on in October. The kidnappers wanted me in Dagang City. Chengbo called me while I was in the air. This is obviously a trap. Yes. They will have prepared for a senior war general. Yes. Wu Tian. Teacher Chen, I said. Can I not go? And I cut the connection, which was rude and which I regret, and which I would do again. What I did not know is what happened in his office 30 seconds later. He took off his cardigan. Underneath it was dark blue armor. He took a blood-red longsword off a rack behind a bookcase I would have sworn on my life was a bookcase and said to an empty room, "Did everyone really think the old man couldn't lift a sword anymore?" Then he stepped into the shadow cast by his own desk lamp and was not in the room. Cheng Bo, vice principal of C University. Third on the list of the strongest war gods alive. They call him the Blood Blade Assassin, and his talent is that he can enter a shadow and come out of any other shadow he likes, anywhere, and that is a talent that makes strategists lose sleep. Nobody at that school knew, not the students, not most of the faculty. He'd been running my monthly rankings meeting in a cardigan for a year. I got to Dagang City and did the thing I always do, which is not walk into the room myself. 10 clones scattered across the city as decoys, each one doing something different in a different district. One clone to the meeting point, and me, in a hat, 300 meters back, watching. The meeting point was an abandoned factory, and inside it were 4 mercenaries playing cards. My clone walked in, and one of them screamed, "You scared the hell out of me!" "I thought you were a Yao beast." 4 twos, said another one, without looking up. "Shall we pass?" I had come to that factory prepared to kill everyone in it. I stood in the dark outside listening to 4 grown men argue about a card game for close to a minute. They were contractors. They had been hired for one job, put Wu Tian and his clone into 2 alloy coffins with restraint injections and drive the coffins to an address. That's it. That was the entire scope. They didn't know about the kidnapping. When my clone told them, the card game stopped. They took his mother? His mother is disabled. One of them stood up. These people are worse than animals. Then their leader said something I have never forgotten, which is, "Kid, you should run. We'll say you never showed. We'll take the loss." 4 hired men, who were about to be paid, offering to eat the loss for a stranger. I've thought about that a lot. People will tell you the world is divided into the strong and the weak, and that's all there is. Those 4 were nobodies. They were also, that night, better than 3/4 of the war gods I have ever met. "No," my clone said, and lay down in the coffin. "Give me the restraint injection. Make it look right." They boxed up 2 of my clones and drove them across the province, and I followed the truck the entire way from 600 meters up. The address was the Wenhui Institute. The Wenhui Institute belongs to the Zhou group, which belongs to Song He, who is an intermediate war god of the Kyoto Zhou family. His brother Song Qing is an advanced war god. Their family's old ancestor is past the war god realm entirely and holds a seat on the board of the International Chamber of Commerce. That's who took my mother. And while the truck was still on the road, Song He was sitting in a garden playing chess with a man who had flown in specifically for this. KL. Peak war god. the single most famous holder of a clone talent on Earth, the one they told us about in school, the man who fights by detonating copies of himself. He'd been stuck one rung below the transcendent realm for a very long time, and he had watched a Chinese teenager with the same talent as him do something with it that he could not do. I want the boy's method, he told Song He. Not the boy. The method. The payment for arranging it was a single wan ling fruit, which is the kind of item that changes what a family is for a generation. Song. He took the deal without asking a single question about a wheelchair. The lab was underground and there were 19 people in it. They opened my coffins, put my 2 clones on tables, and started talking about me over the top of my own body. Extraction of cortical tissue first, then, where are my parents? No, the marrow can wait. The talent expression will be in the… I said. Are you all deaf? Not one of them looked at me. That's the part I keep coming back to. Not cruelty, not gloating. I was equipment, and equipment that talks is a malfunction, and they simply routed around it. So I got their attention. I rolled a pill up out of my throat and held it between my teeth where they could see it. Corpse-dissolving pill. It does exactly what the name says, and it does it in about 4 seconds. The room stopped like someone had pulled the cable out, because a live specimen with a unique talent is worth more than the entire institute. A puddle is worth nothing at all, and every person in that room knew instantly which one they were about to have. My family, I said around the pill. On video. Now. Or I'm a stain, and you all get to explain it. They made the call in 90 seconds. I watched my mother and my father and my sister get walked out of a building on a live feed, and I watched a car take them away, and I watched the feed follow it for 4 kilometers until I said stop. Then I took the pill out of my mouth. Thanks, I said. You can all die now. My real body came through the front gate of the Wenhui Institute at that moment, and I am not going to give you a scene because there wasn't one. I spared the guards, all of them. They were ordinary security men on an ordinary salary who had no idea what was under the building, and I put every one of them on the ground with an open hand, and none of them will walk badly for it. The researchers were not ordinary men on a salary. I destroyed the surveillance system on the way out. The last thing I said, to the last man in that lab, was the only thing I've ever said in my life that I still hear in my own voice at 3 in the morning. You called me a specimen. Now every one of you is a specimen to me. No, that's not right either. A specimen implies I'm interested in what's inside you. 10 of me spent the rest of that night in Dagang City. Song He had 4 sons and 3 daughters and a wife and 6 mistresses and a great deal of property. I found all of it. There is a version of this story where I'm a monster, so here's the precise one. I asked. Every time I asked, I found out what each of them had actually done with a family name that let them do anything. Some of them had done nothing. Those ones are alive. His 3rd son, Song Rui, had done a great deal. He explained it all himself at length, right up until he understood what the conversation was, and then he tried to buy me. He is not alive. I did that in one night, across an entire city, in 10 places at once, and when the sun came up, Song He's phone had a great many missed calls on it. He came to find me at dawn, and he was magnificently unbothered. A mere ant of a war general, he said, hanging in the air above me, speaks this arrogantly to my face. And the great war god, I said, kidnaps a college student's disabled mother. Is that in the brochure? His face did something. Rules and morality, he said, are made by the strong for the weak. The weak obey them, the strong are not required to, which is at least honest. I've heard the same idea dressed in much better clothes by much worse people. Then I showed him the photographs. I'd taken them, all night. I held up my bracelet and let him scroll. I watched an intermediate war god's entire philosophy meet the only argument it has never had an answer for, which is what happens when the weak stop obeying and the strong turn out not to be the strongest person in the conversation. Then he stopped being a person and became a wildfire. Song He had, flame intent, a real concept, fully formed, the thing Shu Qi had spent 11 years failing to reach, and Fang Yu had given up 3 years of her ranking to chase. He didn't attack me with it. That's the part nobody understands until they've stood in one. A concept isn't a technique, he simply existed. Within 400 meters of him, the air became fire, and my origin chi started burning off me faster than I could produce it. He had not touched me yet. That's the wall between a war general and a war god. It isn't strength. It's that one of them changes the rules of the room. I had one thing he did not know about. I fused every clone I had, all 261. 261 clones at 10% apiece is 2,610%, and on top of the Overlord blade at its 3rd level, and I want to tell you what that felt like from the inside, because it's the closest thing to happiness I have ever experienced. It felt like being agreed with, by everything. I hit him once. An intermediate war god, a man who had been at the top of the world for 30 years, killed by a first-year student who was technically still enrolled in a compulsory humanities module. And then someone applauded. Kale was sitting on a wall about 80 meters away, and he had been there the whole time, and he was clapping slowly with a look of genuine, unhurried delight. "You truly do amaze me," he said. "Do you know how long I have been at peak War God? Do you know what I would pay to know how you do that?" Then, without turning his head, "You can come out now. You've been under that tree for 6 minutes." And Chungbo stepped out of the shadow of a tree 80 meters behind me in dark blue armor with a blood-red sword. "Someone is bullying a student of C University," he said. "How could I stand by?" Kyle didn't move. "There's a warhead in orbit above this province with my name on the authorization. And behind me," Chungbo said, "is the Grand Marshal. Would you like me to place the call, or shall we simply see how the afternoon goes?" What happened next I can only describe from the outside, because I was thrown 200 meters by the pressure of the two of them deciding. The world went dark in a circle, like a shadow spilled upward and became a place, and both of them were inside it, and then it collapsed, and neither of them was anywhere. I sat on the ground and worked out, several minutes too late, what had actually been done to me. Song, he hadn't wanted anything from me. Song, he had never heard of me 2 weeks earlier. He was a tool, a rich, arrogant, extremely powerful tool that Kale had purchased with a piece of fruit, pointed at my family, and used to see what I'd do under pressure, because a man cornered shows you his method, and Kale wanted my method. He'd bought a war god's entire family as a diagnostic test. "Kyle," I said out loud to an empty street in Dagong City, "I hope you enjoy remembering this." The aftermath was quiet and mostly logistics. Gao Ming could barely look at me. He'd promised to keep my family safe, and he'd been standing in the wrong city with the wrong rank, and there was nothing anyone could say about that, so nobody said anything. I moved all 3 of them onto the C University campus. To do that legally, I had to be staff, so I signed a special grade teaching contract, the tier they use for advanced war gods, which makes me, on paper, a faculty member of the university I am also a first-year student at. The faculty housing sits inside a perimeter that would take an army to breach, and there are 11 war gods within 4 minutes of my mother's front door at any given time. That's the actual reason. All of it. Every rank, every credit, every fight in this entire story is that sentence. And then May came and found me on the steps. "I want to be a martial artist." "No, I'm not asking." My sister, 16, arms folded, doing an extremely accurate impression of our mother. "They took me because I was easy to take. I'm not going to be the reason you have to do that again. I don't want to be the thing you're afraid of losing. There is no good answer to that. I have looked for one. So I did what cowards do, which is set a condition." "Fine, but you take the vermilion bird body to perfection first, all the way, and you don't step into a war zone until you have it." "How long is that?" "About 3 years. She narrowed her eyes at me because she is not stupid, and she said, "That's a stalling tactic." "Yes," I said. "It's also the correct advice, which is what makes it such a good one." She started the next morning. They'd installed a new testing device on campus by then, the War God Grade 1, rated well past anything a student should produce. Base punching power, 1,800,000 kilograms, fused with 261 clones, 48,780,000. With Overlord Blade at the 3rd level, 195 million kilograms. That is the upper end of Advanced War God. That is 2 rungs above the man I'd killed in a garden. And it did not matter, because I still had no concept, and without a concept, I could hit an opponent for 195 million kilograms while standing inside his weather, losing Origin Chi every second, waiting for him to decide when the fight ended. Which brings me to the old man in the cardigan and the conversation that changed the direction of my life. "Sit down," Chungbo said. "I'm going to tell you about the War God Hall, and then you're going to have some questions, and I want you to hold them until the end. The War God Hall is not a school, and it was not built by humans. It arrived 1,000 years ago and buried itself 3 kilometers under the Kunlun Mountains, and the reason there is spiritual energy in the air of this planet, the reason a boy from a low-rent block can punch through a wall, is that it landed here and started leaking. The Yao beasts are the same leak, the same energy that made us made them. Everything I am and everything that took my mother's legs came out of the same hole in the ground. There is an intelligent life inside it," Chungbo said. "It runs the place. It admits the best young martial artists on Earth regardless of nationality, and it pays in spirit stones, and it has never made a secret of what it wants. One unparalleled genius, cultivated on this planet to help it complete a task it has never described." "What task?" "Nobody knows. 3 men on Earth have asked. It changed the subject 3 times. And people just enroll? Every year, in numbers." He shrugged. It has never lied about anything checkable, it has never harmed a student, and inside its walls there are 4 great Dharma forms, images of the fundamental laws, and a person who sits and contemplates the fire Dharmakaya can walk out with flame intent. I sat forward. Yes, he said, that's why everyone goes. And then he said the thing that decided my next 4 years in about 4 seconds. It also has, in its inventory, items that can regrow a destroyed nervous system. I did not say anything at all. Your mother, he said, has been in that chair for 8 years. There is nothing on this planet that fixes that. There is something in that hall that does. I want to describe what happened in my head because it wasn't excitement. It was a kind of collapse. Every plan I'd made since I was 15, every pill, every bone, every night in a basement, had been in service of a single sentence that I had never once let myself say out loud. And here was an old man in a cardigan saying it to me like a line item. How many points? I don't know. Go and find out. Before that, though, there was the accounting. The war gods who'd come to C University to ask for pieces of me had paid compensation on their way out. 35,000 low-grade spirit stones, which is the currency war gods actually use, and which you cannot buy with money at any price. I took the money and then asked Chung Bo for something else. I want the names. The 3 who wanted me in a laboratory. He gave them to me, which I did not expect. Yamamoto Jugu, a refugee from the drowned island nation, working for somebody bigger. Tian Hai, Kyoto University, backed by their old ancestors' family. Fang Bing, whose mother is of the Xiao family, which is the Grand Marshal's family, which is the single most protected surname in the country. Then I sent their spirit stones back, every stone, to each of the 3, with no message attached. Chengbo asked me why I'd throw away that much. Because compensation closes an account, I said. And I want the account open. I want all 3 of them to know that I refuse to be paid. I want them to watch my rank go up every month for years, and I want them to do the arithmetic every single time. He looked at me for a long moment. You're 18, he said. I'm 17. That's worse. Songqing called him about his brother while I was still in the room. Advanced War God, the dead man's older brother, and he opened with outrage. Your student wiped out an entire family, every one of them. Isn't that a little excessive? And Chung Bo, in a cardigan with a cup of tea in his hand, said, What are you talking about? Your brother's family is fine. Several of them are perfectly healthy. Your brother himself only died once. A sip of tea. And frankly, you should be relieved you weren't in Dagang City that night. The line went quiet, and then Songqing made a noise, and then he backed all the way down, because he just remembered who he was talking to. He spent the next year hoping Kale would handle it for him. The farewell dinner was the Chen twins, Fang Yu and Guo Yan, and Chen Lei got about 2 drinks into it before he started. Do you realize the rest of us are still grinding toward War General? And you've got 1 foot in War God? What do you mean 1 foot? I said. I could kill a god of war right now. There was a pause. You, said Chen Lei with enormous feeling, are a monster and you should be ashamed. Can you not leave the ordinary people anything? Then a fighter jet took me to the Kunlun Mountains. There's a villa community on the surface, which is the part outsiders see. The actual hall is 3,000 meters straight down, and the elevator ride takes 11 minutes, and nobody talks in it. You come out into a space you cannot see the far side of, and the first person I met at the bottom was Han Yu, except his card said Han Sterling now. He had married into the International Chamber of Commerce, and it had bought him early admission, and he was standing there in chamber colors with a Sterling's name stapled to the front of his own. He looked at me, and I looked at him, and neither of us said a word about anything. My card read, Wu Tian, 17, Senior War General, perfect level, contemplations of the 4 Dharma forms, 1, War God Hall, ranking, 127th. His read 126. Of course it did. At the top of that ranking are 3 names. Arthur Sterling of the International Chamber of Commerce, 1st. Rex of the Mercenary Alliance, 2nd. Bai Long of Great Xia, 3rd. Points by contemplations. 1,000 points buys you 1 look at a Dharma form, and 1 look is what most people get in a year. And there was 1 more rule, delivered to me by Chung Bo at the elevator door in a voice he did not normally use. Never fight anyone inside the War God Hall. Not a scuffle, not a shove. It kills you instantly, and it does not care what realm you are. I have watched it happen to a transcendent. The intelligent life turned out to be a vortex of chaos at the top of the hall, with lightning inside it, and no face, and a voice that comes from wherever you are not looking. The entrance assessment was 2 parts. First, a visualization technique, which was fine. Then 4 images of the 4 basic laws, one after another, and you sit in front of each one and it measures what you can see in it. Earth, C-, wind, D, there was no comment. I'd expected none. Water, B, the voice paused. Fire, B+, and the voice, A thing that had been raiding human beings for 1,000 years across who knows how many rooms, trembled. That's the only word for it. It caught, mid-syllable, the way a person's does. Then it explained something to me that reframed everything I thought I understood about power. If law is an ocean, it said, then a domain is a drop of water in that ocean. And a concept is one molecule inside the drop. The concept, that song he had used to burn my origin chi off my body without touching me, the thing Shuki spent 11 years failing to reach, one molecule. Then it made me an inner disciple. There are 4 inner disciples on Earth. Me and the 3 men who lead the 3 great powers. It gave me 1,000 points and a set of armor, Xuan Jin battle armor, which covers everything including the eyes, and which it told me flatly that a transcendent cannot damage. And then it did something I still find funny. It announced my assessment result publicly as C+, a deliberate, calm, public lie in front of a hall full of the strongest young people on the planet to keep them from looking at me too closely. Do not display that armor, it said, and do not correct the rating. An alien intelligence buried under a mountain had, within 4 minutes of meeting me, independently arrived at the exact strategy I had been running since I was 15. I have never felt so understood in my life. I spent 100 of my 1,000 points immediately. Not on a Dharma form, on a small jade bottle of life spiritual liquid. Then I went and sat in front of the fire Dharmakaya, and I comprehended flame intent on the first viewing. One look. The thing Fang Yu had reorganized her entire adolescence around. The thing that separates 300 people from millions. It went into me like a key going into a lock that had been cut. For it. The voice told me afterward that in 1,000 years, exactly one other person on Earth had done that on a first viewing, and his name is Bai Long, and he's 3rd in the world. Then I walked Chengbo to his plane. We didn't talk much. At the steps I took the jade bottle out and put it in his hand. Take this back for my mother, please. And I turned around and went back to the elevator before he could say anything because I did not want to have that conversation with anyone, including him, including myself. He worked it out on the plane, which I should have expected from a man who is 3rd in the world at being unnoticed. A C+ assessment pays out at most 10 points. 10. I had walked out and spent 100 on a medical item and still had enough left for contemplations. Which meant the rating was a lie, and the size of the lie told him something about me that I had not told him, and he sat on that plane for 4 hours and then landed and went straight to my sister and offered to take her as his personal apprentice. He never mentioned any of it to me, not once. I found out about the apprenticeship because May called me screaming. There were 2 welcome parties for me that week, held at the same hour on purpose. Han Yu threw one with the Morgans. Wu Wen threw the other. Wu Wen is 22, ranked 76th, and has been chasing flame intent with a perfection-grade vermilion bird body for 4 years without getting it. He introduced me to Chen Guang, who is 24, ranked 13th, and who actually has a concept. Chen Guang also had 11 months left. You're out at 25, he said over dinner, entirely matter of fact. Everyone is. And only the top 10 get solo trial missions, which are where the real points are, so if you're not top 10 by 23, you're not going to be by 25 either. He raised his glass. I'll make it or I won't. Don't look like that. It's a good deal. Most people don't get 8 years. I liked both of them immediately, and it was mutual, and the reason is unflattering. I was the new 127th with a fake C+ rating and no faction, and being liked cost them nothing. That changed in about 6 weeks, because 80 meters underground and several thousand kilometers away, Kale was still working. He couldn't touch me inside the hall. Nobody can. So he did what he'd done to me once already, which is buy somebody, another Yuanling fruit, to the Zhou family, for one small favor, have Song Jun, 65th in the hall, and a relative of the man I'd killed in a garden, pick a public fight with me, and find out whether I had grasped a concept. That's all he wanted. Not my death. Information. He wanted to know whether flame intent had gone into me, because if it had, then the boy with the clone talent was moving faster than any human being in recorded history, and Kale had been stuck one rung below transcendent long enough to find that unbearable. Meanwhile, the hall ran a lecture on concepts, delivered by Admiral Cheng Yang Yan, who is a transcendent, and who is the single best teacher I have ever had in my life, including everyone I have already told you about. A concept has 3 tiers, he said. At the first tier it is passive. You have it, it surrounds you, and it does nothing except exist because its power is spread across too much space. Most war gods die at the first tier and never understand why the concept didn't save them. At the second tier, it is active. You compress it. The same total power occupying 1/10 of the space is 10 times the power in that space, and now it is a weapon. At the third tier, it is compressed to the absolute limit, and at that limit, it stops being a concept, and it becomes a domain. Then somebody asked how, and he said the thing that unlocked the next 2 years of my life. Don't try to compress the whole thing. Nobody can hold the whole thing in their head at once. Find one point in it. Compress that. Then the next. Find one point. Compress. Repeat. Do you understand what that sounds like to a man with 261 bodies? I walked out of that lecture straight into Song Jun, who had been waiting outside the door with an audience already assembled because these things are always staged. Wu Tian, virtual arena, a friendly duel, for 10 points. 10 points is nothing. 10 points is a coffee. 10 points is the number you pick when you want a man to be unable to refuse without looking scared. Wu Wen stepped between us, which was decent of him, and also completely pointless. He's been here 6 weeks. Pick on someone your own rank. 100, I said. The corridor went quiet. What? Not 10. 100 points, I looked at him. Unless 10 is your limit. Everyone in that corridor decided at the same moment that I was bluffing, including Song Jun, and he took it so fast he nearly tripped over the words. Han Yu heard about it inside the hour and told Evan Sterling I'd finally found a way to embarrass myself in public without any help. I had 11 days. I did not spend them practicing my blade. I spent them dividing flame intent into 100 regions and compressing them one at a time, with 261 of me working different regions simultaneously, 20 hours a day, in a room 3,000 meters underground. Admiral Cheng Yang-yan had told a hall full of the strongest young people on Earth to find one point and compress it, and every single one of them heard, "This will take you 4 years," and it should have. The virtual arena at the War God Hall is not like the one at Sea University. In there, you do not get your own body. Both fighters are placed in identical constructed bodies with identical strength and identical weapons, and nothing you have, not talent, not clones, not 200 million kilograms of fused striking power, comes with you. It is a pure test of skill. It is the one arena where I have nothing, which is exactly why I picked it and why I made a decision walking in that everybody watching thought was arrogance. I didn't use flame intent. Not once. Not for 1 second of that fight. I had it. I'd spent 11 days compressing it, and I locked it in a drawer and went at a man ranked 62 places above me with nothing but a blade and whatever I'd learned holding one, because Song Jun was a free lesson. He'd been fighting at this level for 6 years. Every exchange with him was worth more to me than the win. He opened with Thunder 9 transformations at the 5th level, which is a genuinely beautiful technique, and I want to give him credit. For about 4 minutes, he was better than me. Then it stopped working, and he tried harder, and it still didn't work, and somewhere around the 6-minute mark, I watched a 65th ranked disciple of the War God Hall get angry in front of an audience. Anger opens gaps. That's all anger has ever done in a fight. And in the gap he opened, everything I'd been doing for 11 days with 100 parallel compressions, all of that concentration and precision and repetition, came out the end of a blade that wasn't even mine. 5th level of Overlord Blade, mid-fight, again. I put it through him, and the simulation ended. The corridor outside was extremely quiet when I came out. Somewhere in a mansion on the other side of the world, Kale watched the recording and said, out loud, to nobody, "What garbage." He wasn't even using 70%. He meant Song Jun. He was also, without realizing it, saying the exact thing about me that I had spent 4 years engineering people to say. 100 points went into my account. I now had 1,000. 1,000 points is one contemplation of a Dharma form. Everybody in that hall hoards points for exactly that. It is the only thing worth having. I spent them on something else. There's an option in the hall's inventory that costs 1,000 points and is not popular because it does not make you smarter or teach you anything. It simply provides the resources required to break through a realm. I used it to become a war god, 361 clones, base punching power, 3,014,565 kilograms, fused, over 100 million, with the 5th level of Overlord Blade, 600 million. I was 18 years old, and the reaction inside the hall was not what I expected, and it taught me something I've used every day since. When I was a genius, people envied me. When I fell, people enjoyed it. When I climbed back, people watched to see if I'd fall again. The moment I became a war god at 18, all of that stopped, all at once, everywhere. Genius makes people jealous. Only strength makes them polite. Kale did not take the hint. He went and bought the first-ranked disciple in the entire War God Hall, Arthur Sterling, son of the president of the International Chamber of Commerce. Number 1 on the outer hall list, a man with a fully formed concept and a family that could buy a continent. Kale handed over another Yuan Ling fruit, and Arthur agreed to kill me. That was the going rate for my death that year, 1 piece of fruit. Meanwhile, I spent 2 months compressing. Flame intent, 2nd tier. The radius shrank to 1/10 of what it had been, and the temperature inside that radius went up by a factor I never accurately measured because every instrument I tried it near stopped working. I went back for a second look at the fire Dharmakaya, and the intelligent life could not process the timeline. 3 months, it said. Tier 2 in 3 months. Is that fast? There was a pause of the kind that machines don't normally do. Then it gave me a Yuan Ling fruit for free, the same item Kyle had been spending on assassins, and told me the truth about itself. I have placed a war god hall on 124 inhabited planets over the past 1,000 years. I have assessed several billion candidates. I have never once produced a true disciple. Why do you want one? Because my master fell, he and every one of his subordinates. I am what remains of an estate with no heir. And then, in exactly the same tone, the manuals your species considers legendary, your double S ranks, your reincarnation, are low-grade material in the wider universe, common, cheap. The legacy I actually hold gives 100-fold amplification of combat power, and I have never had anyone to give it to. What's the requirement? Comprehend a domain before the age of 30. Then you would be a true disciple, and everything I hold would be yours. A pause. And those who stand at the highest peak of the universe possess the authority to be resurrected. That's what it wants. That's the task nobody could get out of it for 1,000 years. It's building an heir strong enough to go and get its master back. It told me that in a room 3 kilometers under a mountain, and I nodded like a man being told about a job's dental plan, and inside I was doing arithmetic. 30. I was 18. I ate the fruit that night. A Yuanling fruit forces open the 360 acupoints, which is what makes an elementary war god into an intermediate one, and 359 of them opened. The last one did not. The 360th acupoint sat there and refused for 6 hours while I threw everything I had at it, so I fused all 361 clones at once and hit it with the entire aggregate of everything I have ever been, and it opened. Base 7 million kilograms, 371 clones, fused with the 5th level of Overlord Blade, 1.5 billion. That was the month Bai Long came to see me, Great Shia's finest. 3rd in the world, the only other person who ever comprehended flame intent on a first viewing, and the man cultivating the reincarnation manual I'd once put back on a library shelf out of sheer intimidation. He was polite. He was genuinely, sincerely polite, in the way that only people who have never once been refused can manage. Come and be my deputy, he said. Great Shia's geniuses should stand together. You'd have my family's full support. Thank you. No. Consider it properly. I have. No. And then he did the thing that ended the conversation permanently, which is that he tried to mediate. About Fang Bing. I understand there was some minor entanglement between you. The Xiao family would consider it a personal favor if that were set aside. Some minor entanglement. Fang Bing, I said, wanted to put me on a table and take me apart while I was alive. Is that what a minor entanglement is where you're from? You're being emotional. Bai Long. And I said the next part slowly because I wanted it to be quotable and because I have never regretted saying it. Don't push your luck. If it weren't for your surname, you would be worth absolutely nothing to me. He left. We were civil afterward. We were never anything else. The group trial came in the spring, and the group trial is where the outer hall gets sorted for real. 32 finalists. Round 1 is elimination duels, 100 points a win, and every duel is public. My first was Wu Fei, ranked 62nd, 6 years older than me, a man who had been in that hall since before I sat my high school entrance exam. I opened flame intent and stood still. That's the whole fight. He came in, entered the radius, and stopped because inside a second-tier concept, the air does not cooperate with you, and everything you know about distance and timing is being written by somebody else. He got about 4 meters, then he stepped back out and looked at me and put his weapon down. 19 seconds. He was gracious about it in a way I did not deserve. Second round, number 77, same result, faster. That's not a duel. A concept against a man without one is not a contest of skill. It is a weather event with a person standing in the middle of it. And every one of those people was better with a blade than I was. The hall understood what it was watching by the end of the first round. You could hear it change. There is a particular noise a crowd makes when it stops predicting the outcome and starts predicting the margin. Round 3 put me against Han Yu. He surrendered before the bell, stood up in front of the entire hall, said the words, and sat back down. It was the correct decision. He had watched what happened to the previous 2, and there was nothing to gain. What a pity, I said. That's all. 2 words. And I have replayed his face for years. Round 2 of the trial was the treasure scramble, and this is where I met the 2 men who actually mattered. 3 rings. White for war generals, 20 of them, including Bai Long, all suppressing their cultivation to compete cleanly. Green for war gods, me, Chen Guang, Arthur Sterling, and Rex. Red for the chain demon kings, which we'll get to. Everyone in that hall thought I was an idiot for not suppressing down into the white ring, where I could have farmed easy points. A Yuanling fruit went into the arena as bait, and a girl named Song Xuan got to it first and killed a student on the way. Rex bought it off her for 10 points before Arthur could threaten it out of her, which tells you everything about Rex. The man is a mercenary in the sense that he thinks in prices, permanently, about everything. So I did something Kale made famous. I put a clone right up against Rex and detonated it. Self-destruction, the signature move of the peak war god who had spent 2 years and several fortunes trying to kill me, used on the second-ranked disciple in the hall, in front of everyone, by a man who was not supposed to have more than one body. Rex threw the fruit at me to buy himself half a second, which was the correct call, and also cost him the round. And then Arthur Sterling landed in front of me. Hand over the Yuanling fruit and I'll let you live. Who exactly do you think you are, I said, that you get to threaten me? He opened his concept. Blade wind, a real one, tier 2, and the air within 100 meters of him turned into something that removes you in layers. Rex opened gravity intent at the second tier from the other side, because of course he wasn't going to sit that out. 2 second-tier concepts. The first and second ranked disciples in the War God Hall, on opposite sides of me. I opened mine. I want to describe this properly. Second tier flame intent, compressed to 1/10 of its radius, at 18, from a man everyone in that hall had rated C+ 6 months earlier. The wind hit it and stopped being wind. Arthur backed off, immediately and completely. Then he did something I have thought about ever since. He smiled and bowed slightly, and said, "Only the strongest deserve the strongest treasures." That man tried to have me killed for a piece of fruit and then congratulated me sincerely when I won it. Rich people are unbelievable. Chen Guang, 13th, watching from the edge of the ring, said quietly to nobody, "I think I just watched a new king get born." Both Arthur and Rex tried to recruit me before the end of the day. I turned them both down, politely, and I want it noted that this is the same answer I gave Bai Long, so at least I'm consistent. Round 3 was the Demon Kings. They keep them chained in the red ring. Elementary is worth 10 points, intermediate 100, advanced 1,000, and a peak Demon King is worth 10,000, and everybody teams up for those, and the points get divided. I went at one alone, a mammoth giant elephant. Roughly 1 billion kilograms of force, in chains, in a ring, with the entire War God Hall watching, and the reason nobody had ever soloed one is that 1 billion kilograms is 1 billion kilograms. They keep it chained because a peak Demon King in an open ring would end the trial and most of the spectators. 4 anchor points, alloy, driven into bedrock. It had about 60 meters of slack and it knew the exact radius, which is how I found out that it had been in that ring long enough to learn geometry. A mammoth giant elephant. Gray, wrong-shaped, 8 meters at the shoulder, and it moved like the ground was doing it a favor. The first thing it did was not charge. It waited, at 59 meters, for me to walk into 60. The second thing it did, once I declined, was pull one of the anchor points out of the bedrock. The trial staff started shouting. Somewhere up in the stands, about 400 of the strongest young people on Earth stopped treating this as a scoring event. I want to describe the first exchange honestly. I opened Flame Intent at the second tier, put everything into one strike, and hit it across the skull with the 5th level of Overlord Blade. It turned its head about 11 degrees. That's 1 billion kilograms of force meeting the thing 1 billion kilograms of force is for. There is no clever answer to a peak Demon King. Everybody who fights them does it in groups of 6, and the points get split 6 ways, and that is not stinginess, that is engineering. So I did the only thing that has ever worked for me, which is to stop trying to be stronger than the problem, and start being more numerous than it. I fused, hit, and separated. Fused, hit, separated. Every strike at full aggregate, every recovery spent standing somewhere it had already committed to not being. It could not corner me, because cornering requires the other party to be in one place and to stay tired. 19 minutes. I counted afterward off the arena clock because at the time I had entirely lost track. On the 19th minute, it put its head down to charge and did not lift it again. The ring was quiet in a way that arenas are not supposed to get. 10,710 points, total, for the trial. Bai Long had spent his entire career being called the perennial third behind Arthur and Rex and being extremely gracious about it in public. Rex found him afterward and said cheerfully, "Congratulations, you're the perennial second now." The fallout was interesting from every angle. Kale lost his temper somewhere expensive. Arthur called him and formally withdrew. "I will no longer be an enemy of Wu Tian." Then, being a sterling, he offered to spy on me instead, which Kale accepted and which was worth exactly nothing to either of them. Han Yu went back to his room and sat down on the floor with his back against the door. What he said to himself he told me years later, and I believed him. He said he was going to spend the rest of his life inside my shadow, and the hall's attitude toward me flipped so hard it became a running joke. Disciples who had never spoken a word to me started arriving with family introductions, alliance proposals, and, in one memorable case, a printed folder. I turned all of it down, and not on principle. It was arithmetic. Every one of those offers was somebody buying a share of what I'd be in 10 years at today's price. I've never been interested in selling early. The second Yuanling fruit made me an advanced war god, base 71 million kilograms, 381 clones, with the 5th level of Overlord Blade, 16 billion. And I sat there afterward and thought, right, time to settle up. There were 3 names on the list Chungbo gave me. Let's take them in order. Yamamoto Jugu was hiding in Daxia City, and Daxia City belongs to Ma Wei. Ma Wei is the Ice Emperor, 10th in the world, 3rd tier ice and snow intent, which means he doesn't have a concept, he has most of a domain. And Yamamoto was on his knees in Ma Wei's reception hall the day I came for him, because Yamamoto had never been the one who wanted my cells at all. He was a refugee from a drowned country doing errands, and the man who'd sent him to C University to ask for pieces of me was sitting on a chair behind him. I sent 3 clones, openly. Commercial flight, no disguise, my name on the manifest. Ma Wei met me himself, all warmth, and asked me for the one thing men like him always ask for. Give me a face, let this go, as a favor to me. And I said yes. I said yes, and I meant it in the exact way that General Chen had meant it when he pushed a name-locked credit card across a table at Junction Tower and told me the matter was closed. I had learned that trick from a man who used it on me when I was 16, and I want you to appreciate that I had been holding on to it for 2 years, waiting for somewhere good to spend it. One clone walked into the middle of Daxia City, right to where Yamamoto was standing, and self-detonated. Yamamoto died instantly. So did every camera within a kilometer. My other 2 clones were already in position with flame intent open, containing the blast alongside Ma Wei's own ice because I had no interest in taking a city with him. And then, once the shockwave was boxed, they detonated too. 3 clones, nothing left to examine, no footage, no forensics, a crater in a downtown district and a top 10 war god standing in it coughing, with an enormous amount of explaining to do to his own government. The last thing my 3rd clone said before it went was, "Brother Ma, until we meet again." He called me that evening, and I have never enjoyed a phone call more. "What did you do to my city? What are you barking about?" I said. "All 3 of my clones died the moment they entered your city. I haven't even brought that up with you yet." Tian Hai and Fang Bing were harder, because they weren't stupid. They both moved inside Kyoto University and stayed there. Kyoto University has 40,000 students in it. There is no version of me going in after 2 war gods that does not end with a great many teenagers dead, and both of them knew that. Which is precisely why they picked it. They gave each other the standard comfort, and I have the recording of it because Chungbo is who he is. He's what, 18? We're 254 and 282. War gods live 300 to 500 years. For him to reach transcendent takes a century at absolute best. We'll be dead of old age before he can touch us. That was their whole plan. Outlive him. I want to talk about the conversation I had underground around that time because it's the one that changed what I was afraid of. I asked the intelligent life a technical question about clone talents. Casually, the way you ask about a warranty, its answer came back with no inflection at all. The universe has rules. A life form may possess no more than 3 clones. You have clearly broken this rule. A pause. You are unique among billions of beings I have assessed. I said something about how I had a few more than 3. 11 were deployed simultaneously in Dagang City, it said. I have access to this planet's camera networks. So I told it 31, which was a lie by a factor of 12, and it accepted the number, and then it said the thing I still think about at night. Understand what you are. In the wider universe, there are beings who would consider your body a resource, not your knowledge. Your body, a talent like yours, is worth possessing, literally. If a strong being learns what you are before you are strong enough to refuse, it will take you, and there will be no fight, and afterward the thing wearing your face will have your clones. I went up the elevator that day and stood on a mountain in the Kunlun Range in the cold, doing new arithmetic. I was not, it turned out, competing with Han Yu, or Arthur, or Kale. I was on a list, in a system, on a shelf, alongside candidates from 124 planets, and the prize for winning was an inheritance, and the prize for coming second was becoming somebody's spare body. Everything I did after that had a clock on it. I sent a clone back to C University to teach, because I had signed a contract, and a contract has hours in it. Chungbo and General Fang met that clone at the gate, personally. In front of the entire school, on a Tuesday. The vice principal of the university and the commanding general of the Pudong war zone, standing at a gate made of demon king bones, waiting for a 19-year-old member of staff. I had walked under that gate 2 years earlier in a queue, flinching, with a duffel bag. The course was called Practical Combat Application, and it was mandatory for second years, which meant my class contained a great many people who had watched me get evicted from my own dorm in February. Nobody mentioned it. Not one person, not once. All year. Guo Yan sat in the second row of every session and took notes by hand, which nobody does anymore. She had been the best student in our year for a while. She was still working harder than anyone in that building, including me, and she was very, very good, and she had reached everything she had by pure comprehension against a world that had given her nothing but a spear and a library card. She told Fang Yu afterward what it felt like, and Fang Yu, who has no discretion whatsoever, told me. She said it was like playing a game very seriously for years and slowly realizing that one of the other players had the source code. She was not wrong. I have never once claimed she was wrong, and I have never told her the truth either, and those two facts sit next to each other in my head and do not get on. I also started escorting people into the meat grinder, Chenhai, Chenlei, Guoyan, every day into the Pudong war zone, with me standing behind them as a wall. You cannot buy combat experience, and you cannot simulate it, and you cannot get it without the risk that makes it worth having. Unless somebody removes the risk and leaves the fight, which is a thing exactly one person on Earth could do for them. The first day was a disaster because they would not fight. Every time something came out of the trees, the three of them looked at me first, not for permission, for rescue, which is completely rational when there is a war god standing behind you, and it is also the exact instinct that gets people killed the week after the war god stops standing there. So on the second day, I told them the rule. I don't move until one of you is actually going to die, not losing, not hurt, dying. And I will let it get much closer than you want it to. Chen Lei said several words about my character. Then a level 6 came out of the brush at his brother, and I did not move, and Chen Hai discovered, in about 4 seconds, that he had a technique he had never once used properly under pressure. I broke my own rule twice in 4 months, both times for Chen Hai. Neither time did I mention it. Guoyan never needed me at all, which was its own problem, because she went at everything as though the safety net were an insult and would not stop until the thing was dead or she was on the ground. Twice I had to physically lift her out of a fight she had already won and was continuing for reasons of temperament. 4 months. Chen Lei came out at micro level. Chen Hai came out with a scar he is still smug about. Guo Yan came out one step below perfect and furious about the step. None of them ever thanked me, in words, and I have never wanted them to. And while I was doing school runs into a war zone, 2 men were sitting in a lava cave under a mountain deciding whether to kill somebody on my behalf. I have the recording. Chungbo gave it to me years later, on the grounds that I ought to know how these things actually get decided. Bai Dong and He Wenshan, 2 transcendents in the one place on the continent where nothing can listen. They talked about threats to the species, and they only listed 2. The first was the intelligent life. It arrived. It buried itself. It has been handing us power for 1,000 years, and it has never once told us why. Bai Dong's actual phrase was a sword hanging over our heads on a thread we cannot see. The second was the ocean. The strongest demon kings and the strongest humans are both sitting at the same ceiling, both at the limit of the transcendent realm, and neither side has crossed into the saint realm in 1,000 years of trying. Whoever gets there first does not win a war. There is no war after that. There is only whichever species is still here. I want you to hold on to that conversation, because in about 2 years it stops being theoretical. Then, He Wenshan raised Tian Hai and Fang Bing, and he did not raise them as a matter of justice. The boy has 2 men on a list and no way to reach them. They're sheltering inside a university with 40,000 students precisely because they know he won't come in after them. So he waits. And he is 19, and he will be waiting for 100 years. He'll survive that. He will. That's my worry. A pause on the recording, long enough that you can hear the cave. I don't care what it does to them. I care what a century of swallowed hatred does to the most powerful human being who will ever live. We are not deciding whether 2 war gods deserve it. We are deciding what he is like in 50 years. 9 days later, the president of Kyoto University walked into an office on his own campus without knocking. Tian Hai and Fang Bing were both in it. I've come on the orders of the Grand Marshal to carry out your execution, he said in the tone of a man reading a bulletin. You may leave last words. They asked for their families. Both families had already been consulted. Tian Hai's own old ancestor, the head of his house, the reason he had ever been untouchable at all, had signed off on it that morning, in writing, because a family that shelters 2 men against the Grand Marshal's office stops being a family and becomes a target. 282 years old, and his own people gave him up before lunch. Chungbo sent me the video with no message attached, which I appreciated. I watched it once, in a bunker, in the middle of a mission, and then I did the arithmetic I had been carrying since I was 17, and there was 1 name left on it. Somewhere in there, Chen Guang, now ranked 10th in his final year, came to collect me for my first solo trial mission. Hua Island, the drowned island nation. Points paid per demon king. There is a phrase people use about that place, and I'm not going to use it because 30 million people died there, and most of them never had a vote about anything. I deployed 30 clones across the island and let them farm while the rest of me sat in a bunker compressing flame intent, and somewhere in the middle of a completely routine fight, one of my clones fell into the 6th level of Overlord Blade by accident. By accident. I wasn't even watching that one. And then Mount Fuji opened up and started spitting fruit. Purple spirit fruit. 10,000 points each, and this is the part that mattered. They raised the cultivation of a transcendent, which is the realm where nothing else on earth helps at all. The intelligent life dropped them. It said so afterward, and its stated reason is the single most alarming sentence anyone has ever said to me. These human superhumans are a little too leisurely. It's time to find you all something to keep you busy. Every student on that island called their faction inside 4 minutes. My 30 clones collected 45 fruits while everyone else was still on the phone. Then a transcendent arrived. I had never been near one that wasn't on my side, and nobody had described it accurately to me, so let me do it properly. He came inside a hurricane. That's what a domain looks like from the outside. Not an aura and not a glow. A patch of the world several hundred meters across where the weather is his and the rules are his, moving over the landscape at walking pace with a man somewhere in the middle of it. 10 of my clones were in the open when it crossed them, and they stopped being able to move. There was no impact. He did not do anything. The air simply became a thing that held them, and I want to point out that this was 10 of me, at Advanced War God, with a concept at the 2nd tier, each of them individually capable of killing anything else on that island. How many fruits do you have? He said it without emphasis, in the way you'd ask a shopkeeper for the time. 5. I'll pay 7,000 points each. No. And then there was a pause, and in that pause I was as close to dead as I have ever been, including the beach with the warhead on it, because he could have simply taken them. There was nothing between his hand and 35,000 points, except a decision, and the decision was not about morality. He was pricing me. He was standing in his own weather doing exactly the sum I would have done, which is, this one is 18, this one has 2 concepts, this one has been visibly doubling every year, and in 40 years, this one comes looking. 35,000 points is not worth a permanent enemy who compounds. The hurricane moved on, and my clones fell over. I sat down on a rock afterward and thought about the fact that my entire safety at that moment consisted of other people's arithmetic about my future. That's not safety, that's a loan. That's when Chungbo found me with a proposal. You find them and bury them. I'll come through the shadows and lift them out. Nobody sees either of us. Even split. 60-40. You did the work. Even split, I said, or I'll do it myself badly. He took even. Then I spent the whole haul on a technique everybody told me was garbage. Ranking first in the trial buys you any SS manual in the hall's library. Everyone expects you to take a combat art. I took the 9 Revolutions Soul Refining art, which has no combat application whatsoever. What it does is raise your comprehension ability by 1 grade per turn, up to a maximum of A comprehension. The exact stat I was born at the bottom of, the D that put me in a drawer at 15. The reason nobody takes it is the price. Each turn requires quenching God liquid, and the amounts escalate. 10,000 points for the first, 30,000 for the second, 300,000 for the third. The 4th turn costs 100 million points. The intelligent life told me flatly it was junk. That is a pay-to-win cultivation technique. It is not designed for the poor. I sold 35 purple spirit fruits for 350,000 points and spent 340,000 of it on turns 1, 2, and 3. Turn 2 alone, in the space of half an hour, took my flame intent to the 3rd tier and melted the alloy walls of the room I was sitting in, because here's what nobody in that hall worked out, and what I have never once explained to anyone. Comprehension ability is a multiplier, and I apply it 500 times in parallel. They looked at that manual and saw a rich man's toy. I looked at it and saw somebody finally selling the one thing my talent could not manufacture. 19 transcendents came to Wa Island for that fruit, and by the 3rd day, they were killing each other over it. The 3 leaders had to fly out and stop it, in person, in the sky, in front of everyone. The agreement they reached was elegant and cowardly and completely predictable. The transcendents would stop fighting each other and send their war gods to fight for them instead. Which is how the strongest young martial artists on Earth spent a summer killing each other over fruit that only their masters could eat. I want to put a number on that summer because it gets glossed over in every account, and it should not be. 211 war gods went on to Wa Island. Roughly 1 in 7 did not leave. There are about 300 war gods on this planet, not 300 per country. 300 total on Earth, and every single one of them represents 40 years and a national investment, and we lost a decade's worth of them in 11 weeks over a plant. The rules everyone had been operating under for 30 years came apart inside 4 days. Alliances that had held since before I was born stopped holding. People who had trained together at the War God Hall walked past each other's bodies. Chungbo killed an entire Chamber of Commerce squad in one engagement to pull out a single great Xia god he had never met, and then would not discuss it, and when I asked him about it a year later, all he said was that the man had 2 daughters. And the Transcendents watched all of it from a distance, comfortably, having personally agreed to it because the alternative was fighting each other. I have never had a single kind thought about that summer. Every strong person on this planet behaved exactly as badly as the incentives allowed, and I include myself, and I was one of the reasons the incentives got worse. He Wenshan, C University's principal, the man who walked down out of the sky at my orientation, recruited me for Great Sia's side and offered 50-50, which was absurdly generous and which I understood perfectly well was a bribe. Then he briefed me on the two men to be afraid of. Brock. He transforms. 5 meters tall, 10 times the strength and defense, straightforward, survivable. And Thane, they call him the son of God. He Wenshan actually paused there. He awakened ice and snow intent as a natural talent before he was even a martial artist, not comprehended, awakened. Then he went and comprehended a second concept on top of it, gravity intent, both at the third tier. 2 concepts. 2. Nobody else alive has that. I found Ma Wei before I found either of them. Zhu Gang spotted him from the air and he wasn't alone. He was standing on a beach with Kale, and Kale was wearing a backpack, and the two of them had come to Wa Island specifically to finish what 100 people had failed to finish. I walked out onto that beach in full view. Well, I said, if it isn't Ma Wei, the god of war who likes to be given face, would you like me to give you another one this time? He opened his ice and snow at the third tier, and the sea froze in a ring around us. I opened flame intent at the third tier. The third level, Ma Wei said. He was not asking. He sounded like a man reading his own diagnosis. How is that possible? I killed the 10th strongest war god on Earth with one stroke, and Kale smiled and took the backpack off. I had about a second and a half to see the countdown, and that was enough time for exactly one thought, and the thought was the name of a piece of armor an alien had told me not to show anybody. Medium yield warhead. Point blank. I came out of the rubble about 4 minutes later without a scratch on me, and I sat down in a crater on a dead island and had a genuinely humbling conversation with myself. Kale was right. I was young and I was arrogant and I had walked onto a beach to deliver a line. That's what the line cost. A nuclear device at 0 range and a suit of armor that happened to be the only thing in the solar system that could have made it survivable. I told Chungbo a clone had died. I have never told anyone else the truth about that day until now. Sterling, meanwhile, was tricked into paying compensation for the warhead, which is at least funny. Brock I found in a river. I was standing knee-deep in a river, holding 2 purple spirit fruits I had just dug out of the silt when he came down the bank. Brock is enormous before he transforms. That's the joke about him. He is already the biggest man in any room, and the transformation is not the surprising part. He looked at my hands, and then at my face, and made the traditional offer. Leave, or die. Your choice. Those are both mine, so no. Our blades met exactly once, and he went backward about 8 meters through the shallows, and the expression on his face was worth the entire campaign to me. Then he transformed, which I had been told about and had not understood. 5 meters. It happens in under a second, and it is not a smooth process. 10 times the strength, 10 times the defense, and a man who was already the biggest thing on the riverbank becomes something you have to look up at while standing in water. I put him through the wall of a warehouse on the far bank, and then through the wall behind that one, and then he was outside on the other side of the building and stayed there. He surrendered from the ground, cheerfully, with no visible embarrassment whatsoever, and had 20 fruits brought out. Then he went and told everyone he could find that he had lost to me, not out of honesty, out of pure malice toward Thane. He wanted the Son of God to walk into the same wall he had, and he wanted an audience for it. Nobody believed him. Brock had a reputation for embellishment, and losing 20 fruits to a 19-year-old was, on the face of it, not credible. I finished the third turn of the 9 revolutions in a tent in the middle of that campaign, and my comprehension went up another full grade, and I sat there for the next hour while the 7th level of Overlord Blade simply arrived in my head, unearned, like mail. Then I pushed 3rd tier Flame Intent to major achievement, because at that point, I could not stop myself. And then Thane started robbing people. He was very systematic about it. He went across the island stripping war gods of everything they carried, using 2 third-tier concepts stacked on top of each other, and he did not touch a single member of the Chamber of Commerce or the Mercenary Alliance. He only robbed Great Shia, which was, transparently, an invitation. I said no twice. That's the only reason I don't feel stupid about what came next. I knew exactly what he was doing, and I declined it twice. The third time, 3 of my countrymen had been stripped in a week, and one of them was a man I'd never met who had a family, and Thane put his own 130 fruits up as the stake. I accepted. Chungbo, incidentally, made his own plan without telling me. He'd be in the shadows for a sneak attack if I lost, and Shu Gang would fly me out. Neither of them mentioned it. I found out afterward. Mount Fuji, and I'll never see anything like it again. Half that mountain was on fire, and half of it was under ice, in vertical strata, meeting along a line that kept moving. He pinned me. I want to be honest about that. Two concepts at the third tier layered over each other is not something you fight through, it's something you're in. There was a moment where the gravity had me and the cold had me, and Thane said, with total confidence, "You've lost." And he was right, about the version of me that was standing there. So I fused every clone I had at once, all 381 dives, and tore his double concept open from the inside, and he went back several hundred meters and came up coughing. Then he used the technique he had spent 30 years building. Ice and gravity fused into a single spear. I don't have words for it. It was the best thing I have ever had aimed at me, and it was the work of a man's entire adult life. The 7th level of Overlord Blade went through it. He knelt in the snow with his hands on his knees for a while, and then he said, "I've lost. I accept it completely," and had 183 fruits brought out and stacked in front of me. I was 19 years old, and I was the strongest war god in the world. The final count was 242 fruits. He Wenshan refused his half, which I argued about and lost. Bai Dong, Great Xia's transcendent leader, one of the 3 men who runs this planet, flew me home personally and used the flight to explain what came next. A domain has 10 tiers, he said. The 3 leaders, myself included, are at 3. 4 tiers of domain plus a 9-star transcendent body is what the old records call the Saint Realm, and no one on Earth has ever reached it. What's the difference, really, between a concept and a domain? He thought about it for a while. Law is a lever and a fulcrum, he said. Give me a place to stand and I'll move the world. The world reacted the way the world does. Chen Hao watched the Mount Fuji footage in a dormitory somewhere. What he said to his roommates out loud was, "I competed with that for a girl's attention." Fang Fan's university principal took him on as a personal disciple, purely because he'd been my friend since we were 15. Fang Fan accepted instantly and has never once pretended otherwise. "Old Wu," he told me on the phone, "I have no shame and it's working out great for me." Guo Yan didn't say anything at all. And Fang Yu closed her laptop and called me and said, "Congratulations on becoming the world's #1 god of war." That was the whole call. 8 words, and then she hung up and I sat there looking at the phone like an idiot. And then I flew home, and my mother met me at the door, standing up. I want to tell you about the 8 months in between because I wasn't there for any of it. Chungbo took a jade bottle off a plane and delivered it to a hospital in Great Sea City, and the life spiritual liquid did what it does, which is rebuild a nervous system that has been dead for 8 years. That takes about 4 hours. Then there is the part nobody tells you about, which is that a body that has not walked since I was 10 does not simply stand up. There were months of it. My father took leave from a job he did not have leave at. My sister moved her entire training schedule around the appointments. Nobody mentioned any of this to me once, in any call, in 8 months, because they had all agreed not to, in case it didn't work. She met me at the door in the corridor of faculty housing with one hand on the frame, and she'd clearly been practicing for the moment, and she got about 4 steps. I had been the strongest war god in the world for 11 days. I sat down on the floor of a hallway. She let me stay down there for a while. Then she flicked me in the forehead, hard, the way she used to when I was 9. "Get up. The neighbors will see." That's it. That's the whole reason for all of it. Everything before this sentence and everything after it. Now, the other business, I joined the military formally, which sounds like a big decision, and was in fact a piece of paperwork, and they made me a general, the honorary kind, the rank they normally reserve for transcendence, because they had nothing else on the shelf that fit, and then I asked for my garrison assignment, and I asked for 3 specific cities: Lu City, Dagang City, Daxia City. Lu City is home. Dagang City is where they took my mother. Daxia City is Ma Wei's. The staff officer processing it looked at the list for a while and then approved it without a single question, which I appreciated. Dagang City had a garrison commander named Chen Hua, and Chen Hua had put together a reception for my arrival that was, in every measurable sense, insane. 100-man honor guard, a red carpet at an airfield, gifts stacked on a table like a wedding, and standing at the back of the receiving line, in uniform, at a rank far below what she should have held, was Shu Qi. I walked past Chen Hua without stopping, past the carpet, past the table, past the honor guard, all the way to the back of the line. "Sister Shu," I said, "it's been a long time." You could hear the entire airfield rearranging its understanding of the situation. Here's what Chen Hua had been doing for 2 years. Shu Qi's squad had been pulling the worst rotations in the region, the missions with no support and no extraction plan, and every request she filed for a transfer or a review had died on his desk. Because Shu Qi had once refused to hand over her squad's salvage rights to a man who considered them his by rank, and had said so in front of other officers, and Chen Hua was the kind of man who files that under debt. He'd been feeding a war general to the beast tide, slowly, over 2 years, in increments small enough to look like bad luck on paper. He'd also, in that same 2 years, been telling everyone in the province about his warm personal relationship with the war god Hall's rising star. I did not do anything to him that afternoon. I asked for the duty rosters. He fled the country that night, to the International Chamber of Commerce, which is where people go, and I called Arthur Sterling on video. I have a fugitive who has run to you. Dead or alive? Just kill it, I said. Bringing it back would be a waste of food. Shu Qi was made Brigadier General of Dagang City inside a week on merit on a paper trail that had been sitting in a drawer for 2 years. That was not a favor. She had the record. What she had never had was anyone senior enough to read it. 2 other things happened that year that I did not arrange, and both of them saved my life later. The first, Kale finally worked out the Xuanjin armor. He'd been thinking about that beach on Hua Island for months, and eventually he arrived at the only possible explanation for a man walking out of a point-blank warhead, and he took the information to the Transcendents and started shopping it. Qian Feng, old ancestor of the Zhou family, grandfather of a man I had killed, a transcendent with every reason on earth to want me dead, listened to the whole pitch, and then called me. I want you to know what he's selling and who he's selling it to, he said. Consider it a gift. I asked him why, since I had killed his descendant. Because I cannot kill you fast enough, he said, without any embarrassment at all. You are 19 and you have 2 concepts. In 40 years you will be able to find me anywhere on this planet. I would rather be a man who did you a favor. A pause. A gentleman is judged by his actions, not his intentions. I have very poor intentions, and I intend to behave impeccably. I have never met a more honest person in my life. The second thing, Guoyan broke through, and I nearly ruined it. She'd been hunting an earth demon bear in the war zone deliberately at the edge of what she could survive because that's how perfect level is reached, and she had run out of safer options. What she had not accounted for is that the bear was mid-evolution. I was 4 kilometers up when it finished. She was still fighting a level 9 when it stopped being a level 9 and became a demon king, and I came down through the tree line and put my foot through its skull, and the whole clearing went quiet. Guoyan started shouting at me before the dust settled. 2 years of work. The one fight that would have taken her over the line, and I had ended it in half a second because I could not stand there and watch. What are you yelling about? I yelled back, which is not the greatest apology in the history of language. She reached perfect level 11 days later on her own, off a smaller beast, without any help from me, and I heard about it from Fang Yu. Meanwhile, in a tower on the other side of the world, a man named Sterling was buying grass. Sterling is a transcendent of the International Chamber of Commerce with a second-tier domain, and his family had lost a son-in-law's ambitions, a great deal of money, and an enormous amount of face to a 19-year-old. Star Demon Grass does one thing. It draws Yao beasts, over distance, in numbers. He bought it and had Kale plant it in Great Sea City. The point was not to destroy the city. The point was that a beast tied in Great Sea City would bring my true body out into the open where a transcendent could reach it, because everyone on Earth had noticed by then that Wu Tian only ever showed up as a clone. It worked, in the sense that the tide came. It came at 4 in the morning, which is when they always come, and Great Sea City had 11 million people in it and about 40 minutes of warning. 40 minutes is enough to open the shelters. It is not enough to arm a city, so somebody had to stand on the beach for the other hour and a half. I want to describe what that actually looks like because the footage does not carry it. There is no wall on that stretch of coast. The Steel Great Wall is 40 kilometers inland and faces the wrong way because nobody plans for the sea. There is a promenade, some restaurants, a bike path, and then the water. And the water was wrong. Not waves. The whole surface lifting. The first hour was manageable. Level 7s and 8s come out of surf slowly because they are built for swimming, and the last 4 meters are always awkward, and a man who has been hunting them since he was 17 knows exactly where the awkwardness is. The second hour was not manageable, and that is the hour somebody filmed from a balcony 8 blocks back. You've seen it. Everyone has. One man on an empty promenade with a blood-red blade in the dark, and behind him a city with all its lights on, and nobody in the streets, and in front of him an ocean doing something oceans don't do. I have watched that clip exactly twice, and both times I noticed the same thing, which is that you cannot see my face, and that is the entire reason it works. Anybody could be under that armor. That's the point. That's why people cried at it. At the 90-minute mark, I stopped holding. There is a shape to these things, and the shape is that they keep arriving until something makes arriving unattractive, and no amount of me standing on a promenade was going to do that in time. So I went and got the large yield device out of the garrison armory, which took 4 minutes. And I walked it into the surf and out about 600 meters, and I set it down on the seabed and swam away from it at a speed I have never matched before or since. They rebuilt 11 kilometers of that coastline afterward. The city voted on it, and the vote was not close. 10 clones came in over the rooftops while the water was still boiling and cleared the eastern districts in about 10 minutes, and by the time the sun came up, Great Sea City had lost 406 people in a night that should have taken 40,000, and afterward I stood in the wreckage and asked the only question worth asking, which is, why here? Beast tides don't choose cities. This one had, so I pulled the city's entire camera network and I looked for a blind spot, and Great Sea City has exactly one place with no surveillance at all for reasons of student privacy, Sea University. I found Kyle in an empty freshman dormitory, standing over a planter, and for about 2 seconds the most wanted man of my adult life and I looked at each other across a room I had once done homework in. He destroyed the grass. Then he destroyed himself, instantly, without hesitation, the way he'd been detonating copies of himself for 30 years. No grass, no body, no evidence, nothing to take to the Supreme Council. Sterling had spent a fortune and lost nothing but an employee. And I stood in an empty dorm room holding a handful of ash with the whole thing exactly as unfinished as it had been an hour earlier, and I understood that I was not going to be allowed to win this by being strong, so I stopped trying to. Sterling's second play was bigger, and he made it about 6 weeks later, and it is the single stupidest thing a human being has ever done. He spent 300,000 points on nine-tailed dragon sunflower grass, which is a transcendent grade item, and then he took it out into the ocean and traded it to the Black Dragon Emperor. The Black Dragon Emperor is the strongest thing in the sea. Not the strongest demon king, the strongest thing, the one every other demon king in the Pacific defers to, the one the transcendents on our side quietly agree not to provoke. Sterling gave it a growth treasure. In exchange, it agreed to two things, a worldwide beast tide and a staged confrontation near Great Sea City that would look organic enough to force my true body out. Sell a weapon to the thing outside the wall so it will help you murder a teenager inside it. The intelligent life watched all of this happen through Earth's own satellites, and its only recorded comment on the entire species is, "I have never seen such a suicidal race." While Sterling was arranging the end of the world, I was in a basement doing chemistry. The intelligent life had told me months earlier to comprehend a second concept and specifically to pick the opposite pole of the first. Flowing water, it said. You have flame. Take water. Those cancel each other. They conflict. That is the point. Two concepts that agree will sit beside each other forever. Two that conflict will grind against each other until one of them evolves. I got flowing water at the first tier on a single viewing and the second tier within days, because by then that was simply what happened when I looked at things. Then I put 300 clones on the problem of making fire and water occupy the same space, and they tried it 300 different ways simultaneously for weeks, and every single one of them failed differently, which is the only useful kind of failure, and then one of them found it. You don't mix them. You let the water carry the flame, the way a river carries what's in it, without becoming it, and in the other direction you let the flame move like water, with no fixed shape, going where the ground allows. The concept came apart in my hands and reassembled as something larger, and the voice in my head said one word I had been chasing for 2 years, flame domain. And then, 40 minutes later, in the same session, writing the same insight backward through the other side of it, flowing water domain, 2 domains, in one evening, at 18. The intelligent life did not speak for a long time. When it did, it was to tell me that I had just become the only true disciple it had produced in 1,000 years across 124 planets, and that I should come and collect. The inheritance was, in order, 100 million points. The number that buys the 4th turn of the 9 revolutions. It had been sitting in a catalog mocking me for a year. The actual War God Hall legacy, combat movement, physical and soul methods, all of it written in the common tongue of the universe, which I could not yet read. The blood flame flowing blade, a weapon in the same class as the Xuanjin armor, and the energy pool. I asked what it was and got a number instead of a description, which is how that machine answers everything important. 1 day in the pool takes a war god to the transcendent realm. 10 days takes a transcendent to 9 stars, which is the ceiling below saint. I want to say that again with context. The transcendent realm is what every war god on Earth spends the back half of a 400-year lifespan failing to reach. There are 19 of them on this planet. The youngest is 160. 1 day. There was one piece of housekeeping first, and it's the part people find uncomfortable. Clones do not level up with me if they are out in the world. They stay at whatever they were when they left. So before I got in, I had to bring every clone I had deployed across 3 cities, 2 continents, a war zone, and a university, home, and destroy all of them, so the new set would come out on the far side at the new realm. I did it in one afternoon, one after another, in a room, myself. I've been asked whether that bothers me, and I have stopped pretending to have a complicated answer. There is one soul. There has only ever been one soul. Ask any of them. The pool itself was the single worst physical experience of my life, and I include the night I became a martial artist and the night I opened 12 meridians in 11 hours. It is not a bath. It is a volume of raw energy in a shaped space, and getting into it is a decision you have to make with your whole body while your whole body is arguing. What it does is take you apart at a level below tissue and put you back together at a different specification, and it does not do it in one pass, and there is no anesthetic and no unconsciousness. You are present for all of it. 10 days. I came out on the 11th morning and sat on the edge of it for a while and could not immediately remember how walking worked. Transcendent realm, 9 stars, 100 clones on the breakthrough and 10 more per star after. 561. And while I was in that pool, the ocean came up. Every coastal city on Earth, simultaneously. Not a beast tide, the beast tide, the one that gets a chapter in whatever history book comes after this. Every coastal city, at once. Not staggered, not regional, the whole rim of every ocean on the same night, which is not a thing beast tides do, and which was the first hard proof that something was organizing them. Shuqi held Dagang City with a garrison she had inherited 4 months earlier, and rebuilt from the roster up. She was on that wall for 31 hours. She lost 8 people. Every officer who had been quietly written off under the previous commander was on that wall with her, and every one of them held their section, which tells you exactly what had been wrong with Dagang City for 2 years, and it was never the roster. Chungbo held Great Sea City, and about half the campus finally found out what the vice principal does, which took some adjusting to. And every transcendent on the planet flew out over open water to keep the demon emperors off the shoreline, which is exactly what Sterling had paid for. That was the entire product, not the deaths, the geometry. It put every powerful human being on Earth in a known position, at a known time, facing out to sea. I sent 30 clones and kept my true body hidden. That was Qian Fang's warning doing its work. A transcendent who wanted me dead had told me where the trap was, out of pure calculated self-interest, and I had listened. Then I sprang it deliberately. I let a clone take a beating from a demon emperor on an open shoreline in front of every camera in the region, and this is the part that took real discipline. I let the Xuanjin battle armor be visible while it happened. An alien intelligence had told me never to show that armor. I put it on television. Sterling arrived within 4 minutes. He hung there in the air above me, a transcendent with a second-tier domain, looking at a bleeding 19-year-old in a suit of armor that nothing on Earth can damage, and he made his request in the tone of a man asking to borrow a car. That armor, lend it to me, for the good of humanity. I let him finish. Then I said, loudly enough for the recording, you colluded with the Black Dragon Emperor to start this tide. You redeemed 9-tailed dragon sunflower grass from the intelligent life, and you traded it to a demon king. Would you like me to send you the video? His domain flickered. That's a thing that happens when a transcendent is surprised. And then I put my head back and shouted it at the entire sky, at every drone and satellite and bracelet camera pointed at that shoreline. Morgan has betrayed humanity. And I stood up out of the water. Not jumped, stood up into the air and stayed there. Because war gods cannot fly. Everyone on Earth knows that. It's the flat rule. It is how you tell. I watched a transcendent of the International Chamber of Commerce understand in real time what he had just flown down to collect. You've got the wrong idea, I told him. The armor isn't bait for you. I just needed a legitimate reason to attack you in public. I killed the demon emperor in one cut, so nobody could say afterward that I had abandoned the line. Then I killed Sterling in one cut in front of every transcendent on Earth, with the recording still running. Arthur Sterling's father came down out of the sky about 90 seconds later, the president of the International Chamber of Commerce. 3rd-tier ice and snow domain, 10 miles of open sea froze solid underneath us while he was still deciding what to say. You will stop. Now. I killed him, I said. So what exactly are you going to do about it? He showed me. 10 miles of ocean turned to ice and came at me all at once, and it was magnificent. The blood flame. Flowing blade went through it, and then it went through his guard, and the man who runs a third of the planet's economy went backward across his own frozen sea in front of an audience of 19 transcendents. Baidong and Dimitri got between us before it could finish. They had to physically get between us. That detail was in every report. What I said before I left is the only thing I have ever asked anyone to quote me on. I will not trouble anyone who does not trouble me. Anyone who does had better finish the job. Shugang flew Shuqi and me back from that coastline and spent the entire trip making the kind of remarks a master makes when he thinks he's funny, and then dropped us on a roof and left at speed. I offered her the thing I'd come to offer, which was a Transcendence recommendation slot to the War God Hall. There are a handful of those in the world each year. I had one. She took it and thanked me, and then she asked the question directly, the way she does everything. You don't actually like me, do you? I would like to report that I handled this with poise. Sister Shu, I said. You took care of me back then, which is a true sentence and also transparently an evasion, and she let it sit in the air just long enough for me to hear it. Heh heh, she said. I was joking. Then I left the room at a speed that was not dignified, and I could hear her laughing at my back all the way down the corridor. I brought everyone to the War God Hall that year. My parents, Mei, Fang Yu, Shu Qi, Guo Yan, both Chen twins, Fang Fan, Gao Ming, Feng Jian, Zhou Hui, Tang Fang, the girl who turns invisible, who I'd spoken to maybe 4 times, but who had been decent to me in February when nobody else was. 10,000 points each. 10,000 points is 10 contemplations of a Dharma form. Disciples in that hall spend 4 years accumulating that. They watched a convoy of ordinary people from Lu City and Great Sea City walk into the elevator with more points than most of them will ever hold, and somebody in the crowd said the old line about one person finding the path and all their relatives benefiting from it, and honestly, yes, correct. That's exactly what was happening. I gave Fang Yu hers last, and I did it in front of Shu Qi on purpose. That's for the pill. Fang Yu looked at the ceiling. What pill? The one you gave Sister Shu to give to me when I was 16, because you knew I'd never take it from you. I let that sit for exactly as long as it deserved. It took me 3 years to work it out. I'd like the record to show that I did work it out. Shu Qi laughed so hard she had to sit down on a bench 3 kilometers underground. I had written an IOU that night on a scrap of paper in a basement for 1 million yuan I did not have. 10,000 points is worth rather more than 1,000,000 yuan. I checked. I have been carrying that piece of arithmetic since I was 16 years old, and I was not going to be talked out of settling it. 2 things came out of that trip that I did not plan. The first is that Feng Jian and Zhou Hui both comprehended a concept on their first viewing, both of them, 19 years of teaching in his case, 19 years of a senior war general standing in a room explaining fundamentals to teenagers, and everyone including him had decided that his ceiling was where he was standing. It was never talent. It was that nobody had ever given him a look at the thing itself. He tried to give the remaining points back. He stood in a corridor 3 kilometers underground with a transfer request open on his bracelet, arguing about it with a former student he had once hung up on. You were right, he said eventually. In October, about the vermilion bird. You were right, and I was your teacher, and I did not listen to you, and I have thought about that every year since. You were right too, I said. You just had bad data. Where did I get the bad data? From me, on purpose, for 4 years. He looked at me for a second, and then he laughed until he had to put a hand on the wall, and that is the closest thing to an apology either of us ever managed. Shu Qi did not comprehend a concept. 12 years of trying, a transcendence recommendation, a dharma form in front of her, and nothing. She was delighted anyway, and I did not understand that until she explained it. Before this, she said, I couldn't see the road. I knew there was one. I couldn't see it. Now I've seen it. I know what it looks like. Whether I get there is a different problem, and it's a better problem. Then, because she is who she is, she told me that Guo Yan had feelings for me, watched my face do something, and started in on Fang Yu until I physically left the building. The second unplanned thing was Kyle. Chen Fang called, he'd captured him, I never found out how, and he was offering him up as a gift wrapped with the implication that I'd want to do it personally after 3 years. I was in the middle of something. Kyle isn't important to me anymore, I said. You've got him. Just kill him. And I went back to what I was doing. I expected that moment to feel like something. It felt like nothing at all. The man who bought a war god's entire family as a diagnostic test, who set a beast hide on my university, who put a warhead in my face at 0 range, and by the time I could reach him, he had become a piece of admin. Qian Fang, incidentally, was enormously relieved. Kale knew exactly who had sold him out, and dead men don't file reports. Then, at 19, I learned to read. The War God Hall legacy is written in the common tongue of the universe, which nobody on Earth speaks, and which the intelligent life declined to simply install in my head on the grounds that it does not work that way. 500 clones. A few months. Done. And what was in there rearranged everything I thought I knew about power. The Ouroboros Flame Battle True explanation. 10 levels. Each level multiplies your combat power by 10. Full mastery is 100-fold, and I want to point out that the entire human martial canon, every technique in C University's library, everything Overlord Blade ever gave me, tops out at doubling. The 12 Fire Wing Phantom Body technique, for movement, which incidentally contains the actual structure of the fire element law. And the map. The 6 mysteries of fire. Fire element profound truth at the bottom, then incineration and destruction, light and dark, nirvana in the middle, kindling, and at the top, heart fire. I read the light and dark section 3 times before I understood what I was looking at, and then I made a phone call. Teacher Chen, your shadow intent. It isn't a shadow technique. Go on. It's the dark half of light and dark. You've been cultivating one lobe of a mystery for 40 years without knowing there was another one. Here's where the rest of it is. I sent him the map. I sent Bai Dong the parts that fit his line too. Both of them had been stuck for decades. Both of them moved within the year. Bai Dong said something afterward about me being a lucky star for Great Xia, and it got repeated a lot, and I have always thought it was a strange way to describe what was actually a filing decision. The accounting, at 19.5. Flame domain, second tier. Ouroboros at level 3, which is 30 times. 561 clones. 1,683 times amplification. Fang Yu finished her perfection-grade vermilion bird that spring, exactly on the 3-year schedule she'd described to me in a cafeteria when we were 16, and became a formal martial artist. 3 years at the bottom of every list, on purpose, to a plan, without complaining once. Guoyan made war god, and Great Xia put me on the Supreme Council. The Supreme Council is the body that actually runs this planet, and nobody voted for it, and nobody can leave it. Every transcendent is a member automatically, by existing. That is the entire membership criterion. There were 19, I was the 20th, and I was 19 years old, and the average age of the other members was somewhere north of 200. My first session, I sat and listened for 4 hours to a discussion about grain corridors and beast migration, and one extremely long argument about a shipping lane, and I did not say a single word, because I had absolutely nothing to contribute, and I knew it. That's the part nobody tells you about power. I could have killed everyone in that room. I could not have run a shipping lane. I published my fire element law notes to the council's Great Xia channel only, not to the world. I got asked about that. My answer was one sentence: I don't want it going abroad. That is the entire reason a 19-year-old was on that council and taken seriously, and I would like the historians to write it down accurately. The grass finally worked. Sterling had been dead for 1.5 years by then, and the thing he'd sold the 9-tailed dragon sunflower grass to had spent that 1.5 years quietly digesting it at the bottom of the Pacific. The Black Dragon Emperor broke into the Saint Realm. There has never been a saint on this planet. Not in 1,000 years of records. 4 tiers of domain and a 9-star body is the theoretical door, and nobody, human or beast, had ever walked through it. It came up out of the water as the first unified every demon king in every ocean under itself inside a month, and then made an announcement that it did not bother to encrypt, which was that it intended to remove humanity from the planet. And somewhere in that announcement, according to people who study these things, was a specific memory it had chosen to keep. One young man, on a shoreline, with a blood-red blade. The first city went 11 days later. An international chamber of commerce city on their coast with their transcendents in it. No survivors, not a low number of survivors, none. The Supreme Council convened an emergency session in a virtual chamber, and they put the reconnaissance feed on the wall, and there were more than 1,000 demon kings on it. 1,000. For scale, one elementary demon king came at Lu City when I was 17, and it took a nuclear warhead and everything I had, and I still nearly lost. Sterling spoke first, and I want to represent his position fairly because it was not cowardice, it was arithmetic. We cannot hold the surface, we should not try. The War God Hall is 3 kilometers underground and structurally beyond anything on this planet. We move the geniuses inside it, we seal it, and we preserve the species. Bai Dong said, "How many does the hall hold?" "Enough." "How many?" Sterling didn't answer. "There are 8 billion people on this planet," Bai Dong said. "You are proposing to save the ones with good talent. Say the rest of the sentence out loud. Say what happens to everyone else while you're behind that door." Nobody said anything for a while, and I sat in that chamber and thought about a woman in a wheelchair under a market roof in Lu City, and about how she would not have qualified for the elevator. Then Dimitri proposed sending one of my clones out to probe the Black Dragon Emperor, since a clone is expendable and I could afford it. And Sterling, who had recently been knocked across 10 miles of his own ice by me and had not entirely processed it, said that a clone of mine would be torn apart before it got within sight of the thing. Bai Dong told him to either go and probe it himself or be quiet, so I sent 10. The feed showed them come in over open water and meet the outer screen of the Demon King army, which was about 100 of them, arranged in the water like a wall. There was one flash of light. Every Demon King in that screen came apart at the same instant. The Supreme Council of Earth, 19 Transcendents, the people who run the world, sat in total silence and watched 100 Demon Kings fall out of the sky in one frame. "Wu Tian," somebody said. "You've broken through again." My domain reached the 3rd tier recently, and I watched every face in that chamber change, and what changed in them was not admiration. It was fear. All of it. 19 of the most powerful human beings alive looked at a 19-year-old and did the same private calculation at the same moment, and I could see them all doing it. I filed that away and dealt with it later. The probe itself went badly and well at the same time, and I would like to be specific about which was which. It came up out of 4 kilometers of water without disturbing the surface, which I still do not understand and have never had explained to me. It was black and it was long and the scales on it did not shine. That's the detail I keep. Everything else in that ocean caught the light. It did not. Looking at it was like looking at a place where the sea had been deleted. First contact, it moved, and I want to tell you that a saint at full speed is faster than anything I had ever seen, because that's the version that makes me look good. It wasn't. I was faster, comfortably. Not by a margin, by a category. The 12 Fire Wing Phantom Body technique came out of a legacy that predates this planet's biosphere, and the Black Dragon Emperor had spent 1,000 years being the fastest thing in an ocean full of fish. It missed me for 6 straight minutes, then I hit it. Everything. Third tier flame domain, the full fusion, the blood flame flowing blade, straight down the line of the spine where the plates overlap, at the one spot on any armored thing that is always the answer. And the blade stopped, not deflected, stopped, the way your hand stops on a table. 2,000 degrees of compressed domain and the best weapon in the solar system, and there was not a mark on it afterward, not a scratch, not a scuff. I hit it 11 more times in the next 4 minutes, in 11 different places, with everything I could think of. The last 3 were not tactics. The last 3 were a 20-year-old refusing to accept an answer. So the probe returned a clean result. I could not be caught, and it could not be hurt, and 2 of those facts make a stalemate that lasts until one side gets bored, and saints do not get bored. But I had not gone out there with one clone. While that was happening, 9 others were working through the rest of the ocean. The deep-sea Naga, the ancient serpent, the golden overlord dragon, names that had their own sections in the threat briefings of every country on Earth that had been used to justify defense budgets for 40 years, that the Supreme Council discussed by codename because saying them plainly upset people. They went in about 90 minutes, in the background, while the main event was a stalemate. By the time I disengaged and let the clone go, the first saint in the history of this planet was standing in an empty ocean with nothing left under it. That is what the council actually saw on the wall that day, and it is why the vote went the way it did. Not that I had fought it, that I had gone out to fight the strongest thing alive and had spare capacity. Back in the chamber I stood up. I'm going to counterattack, into the sea, I'd like to know who's coming. And nothing happened. 19 transcendents, and the room stayed silent long enough that I could hear the room. Then Qian Fang said, I'll come. A transcendent whose grandson I'd killed. Then He Wenshan, who taught me, then Bai Dong, then Dimitri. And last of all, after a pause that everyone in that chamber measured, Sterling. Somebody wrote afterward that my influence had surpassed the 3 leaders. That's the polite framing. The honest framing is that I asked a room of people who were afraid of me to follow me, and they did, and some of them did it because they were afraid of me. I killed the Black Dragon Emperor in one strike, which sounds like a moment of transcendence, and it wasn't. It was arithmetic that had been assembling for 4 years. The 5th level of the Ouroboros Flame Battle True Explanation multiplies combat power by 50. 561 clones fused is another factor. Together, 2,500 times amplification. The first saint in the history of this planet, undefeated, unscratched, with a domain thicker than the seabed, and I put a blade through it once and it was over. Everything I have ever done, the 11 of me in a bathroom in a low-rent block, the 121 drilling in a basement, the 400 learning an alien language, all of it was pointed at that 1 second, and the second itself was nothing. That's how it always goes. The work is enormous and the moment is small. We cleared the land beasts afterward, all of them, every Yao beast on every continent, over about 11 weeks, systematically, with everybody helping. We deliberately left the sea beasts alive. That was my call, and it was not sentiment. Take away every threat, and in 40 years this planet produces no martial artists at all, because nobody trains for a war that ended. The meat grinder made Gao Ming. It made me. A world with nothing in the water is a world that gets eaten by whatever arrives next. So the ocean stays dangerous, on purpose, forever, by a decision I made at 19 and have never put to a vote. Great Sea City rebuilt fast, and when I flew in for the reopening, every screen in the city was playing the same 40 seconds of footage on a loop. A blade going into a saint. Under it, in characters 4 stories high, Wu Tian, the strongest man on earth, slayer of the Black Dragon Emperor. That was the Chamber of Commerce's edit. Great Xia had their own. The Mercenary Alliance had commissioned a documentary. 3 powers who spend their entire existence undermining each other had independently decided within the same fortnight to make me a hero. I asked Chengbo about it because I've never once had an instinct for this kind of thing. He put his tea down. Because they're terrified of you. They just spent $250 million on a poster campaign. Yes. Think about what you are, from where they sit. You are 20 years old. You cannot be killed. They have tried, with everything up to and including a nuclear device at contact range. You cannot be outlasted because you get stronger monthly, and they have plateaued. And 2 months ago, you asked a room of 19 transcendents to follow you into the ocean, and every one of them went. He shrugged. If tomorrow morning you decided to rule this planet, there is no mechanism on Earth that could stop you. None. They've checked. So they're making me a superhero. They've hired psychologists, actual behavioral consultants, on retainer in 3 countries. He almost smiled. If you are the savior of humanity, then a savior is what you have to keep being. It's a leash made of praise. They're building you a role you'll be too proud to step out of. I laughed for a long time. It's genuinely the best play anyone has made against me, and it cost them nothing but money. Then he said the part that wasn't funny. Here's my real concern, and it has nothing to do with them. You've isolated yourself from your own species, not on purpose. You're 20, and there is no one on this planet you can talk to as an equal, and there is not going to be. That does things to people. I've watched it. What do I do about it? Found something. A school. Somewhere people can reach you without an appointment, where you have to sit in rooms with ordinary martial artists and answer stupid questions. Otherwise, in 30 years, you'll be a very powerful stranger, and nobody will tell you when you've gone wrong, because nobody will dare. So I built it, and the intelligent life designed it, and it picked the name itself. It chose the character for eternal, which is also the character in my name, and I want to note that a machine buried under a mountain for 1,000 years made the only joke I have ever heard it make. The eternal martial hall. Free. To everybody. Any human being on this planet who wants to learn to fight walks in and learns, at no cost, with no assessment and no talent rating at the door. If you make martial artist, we sign you and we fund you. That last part is not charity, it's the whole thesis. I was a D. I was sorted into a drawer at 15 by a machine that was correct about everything it measured and wrong about everything that mattered. There is no reason to believe I'm the only one that ever happened to. Headquarters on Wa Island because 30 million people died there, and it should be something now. Everybody joined. Qian Fang walked away from the International Chamber of Commerce to do it. Arthur came, which annoyed his father enormously. Baidong seconded staff. We opened the first branch on Wa Island on a Thursday, and I went, because it seemed like the kind of thing you should go to. 240 people turned up. Most of them were not young. A lot of them had been rated at their awakening ceremony years ago, told what their letter was, and had gone off and become drivers and cooks and clerks, and had spent a decade quietly assuming the letter was the end of the conversation. One woman near the front was 46. She asked, in front of everyone, whether there was an age limit and whether there was a talent minimum, and she asked it in the specific flat way people ask questions they already expect a no to. I said no to both, and she cried, and I had to look at the ceiling for a while. That is when the thing actually became real to me. Not the funding, not the branches. A 46-year-old asking permission to try. 1 year in, 3,000 branches, 10 million registered martial artists. Every single one of those powers has planted people inside my organization. I know roughly how many, and I know roughly who. I don't care. Let them watch. 10 million people learning to fight for free is worth any number of spies, and if the spies learn something, then the spies are also 10 million people learning to fight for free. Which brings me to the last thing that happened, and to the reason I'm telling you all of this. Flame Domain, 4th tier. One release of it now melts super alloy. I went to inspect the War God training camp on Wei Island. Our camp, the Eternal Martial Halls, the one where we put the best of the 10 million. Their number 1 was a young man named Mike, who has, of all things, a clone talent and flame intent. Their own little version of me, and enormously proud of it, and every bit of that pride was earned. Arthur was there ahead of me, and somebody asked him what I was actually like, and I'm told he thought about it for a while. His virtual projection looked at me once, Arthur said. Just a glance. My soul shook. I've searched for a better word than deity, and I haven't found one. I stepped off the fighter into a courtyard full of the strongest young people on Earth, all of whom had been told about me, and none of whom had been near me, and I opened the domain over the whole camp. The sky turned into a sea of fire, space bent along the edges of it. For a few seconds, the actual sun looked like something painted on a backdrop behind a much larger and more serious light. Nobody moved. Nobody could. And then I closed it and said the only genuinely useful thing I know, which is that real strength is not what your body can do, it's what your mind survives. That night, Sterling watched the recording alone with a bottle of wine that had been in his family for 200 years, and he said to nobody that from now on he would simply be the president, cultivate honestly, and stop having ideas. I'm 22 now. 3 more years have gone by since the Black Dragon Emperor, and they have been, by an enormous margin, the most boring 3 years of my life. And I mean that as praise. Flame Domain, 5th tier. 2 more tiers than the men who run this planet, and I got there the way I have got everywhere, which is by doing an extremely dull thing several hundred times at once for a very long time. I'd like the 7th tier inside a century. That sounds slow right up until you remember there are 561 of me working on it, at which point it starts to sound like a schedule. 4 tiers of domain and a 9-star body is the Saint Realm. I have 5 of 10 and 9 of 9. Nobody has said out loud what that means yet in any meeting I have been in, and I have noticed that nobody has said it, and so has everyone else. My mother walks to the market. My father retired badly and unretired twice. Mei is a martial artist and Chung Bo's personal apprentice, and she is going to be terrifying, and I have made my peace with it. Gao Ming made war general at 48, an instructor with 1 eye and a D-rank ceiling everyone agreed on, including him, and he cried at his own ceremony and denied it afterward to my face. Fang Fan still calls me Old Wu. That is the correct number of people to be doing that. I started as a boy who could not afford 1 pill, being told by a rich kid in a school gym that a toad shouldn't dream of eating swan meat. I ended up the reason that kid's father can't sleep, and the reason there's an ocean on this planet instead of a graveyard. And now the ending, which I have earned the right to tell straight. The intelligent life called me last week to say it's sending me out into the universe ahead of schedule. Fine, expected. I've been ready for that since it told me about the 124 planets. Here's what it did not tell me. On planet 113 there's an orphan with gold horns, 3rd tier universe bloodline, 70 times the genetic grade of anything born on Earth, including me. His parents' ship died and left him alone on a rock, and the intelligent life found him about the same time it found me. It has been raising us both, side by side. 2 heirs, 2 files, 1 inheritance. And in its files there's a line of reasoning I have never been shown, which runs like this. The ideal successor would have the boy's bloodline and my talent, and there is exactly one way to get both into one body. He would need to take mine. It is decided to let us both grow and keep the better one. Nobody has mentioned any of this to me. I found out the way I find out everything, which is late and sideways, and by being the only person in the room still doing arithmetic. So here's where I am. 22 years old, the strongest thing on my planet, standing at the bottom of a ladder I can't see the top of. And somewhere out there is a boy who has never met me, who has been measured against me since we were both children, and who has been told, by the only voice either of us has ever trusted, that one of us is a spare part. Cool. Very cool. Love that for me.